The girl he rejected. They say when an alpha rejects you in front of the whole pack, you have two choices: disappear or die. Seraphine Hale chose neither. She chose revenge, not with claws or fangs, but with something far more dangerous. She saved the life of the man who destroyed her. And that single act of mercy, it didn't just change everything, it shattered the world. Stay with me until the end of this story. You won't believe what happens when the weakest wolf in the pack becomes the one thing an alpha can't live without. Drop a comment with your city and let me know you're watching. Hit that like button and let's dive in. The ceremony was supposed to be beautiful. Seraphine had imagined it 1,000 times. Standing beneath the ancient oak in the pack's ceremonial grounds, the full moon overhead, Kyle hand in hers as he spoke the binding words. She'd imagined the warmth in his eyes, the way his voice would soften when he said her name. She hadn't imagined this. I, Kyle Draven, heir to the Silver Pine Pack, reject Seraphine Hale as my mate. The words hit like a physical blow. Seraphine felt her knees buckle, but she locked them, refusing to fall. Around her, 300 wolves stood in perfect silence. The clearing that had been filled with celebration moments ago now felt like an execution ground. Kyle stood 10 feet away, his jaw set, his dark eyes fixed somewhere over her shoulder. He wouldn't even look at her. The bond is severed, he continued, his voice carrying across the clearing with the authority of an alpha's son. By my word and my will, I claim no tie to this woman. Seraphine's wolf whimpered inside her chest, a sound so broken it made her want to vomit. The mate bond, that golden thread she'd felt connecting them since her 18th birthday 3 months ago, began to fray. It didn't snap cleanly. It tore, slowly, like flesh ripping from bone. She couldn't breathe. Kyle. Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Please, just tell me why. For a moment, just a heartbeat. His mask slipped. She saw something flicker in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Regret. But then his father, Alpha Gareth Draven, stepped forward, and Kyle's face went blank again. The heir of Silverpine cannot be bound to weakness, Gareth announced, his voice booming. Seraphine Hale has no warrior blood, no alpha lineage. She cannot hunt, cannot fight, cannot bear strong young. She is a healer, nothing more. The crowd murmured agreement. Seraphine felt their eyes on her like brands, weak, useless, unwanted. Her best friend Iris pushed through the crowd and grabbed her arm. Sarah, come on, let's go. But Seraphine couldn't move. She was staring at Kyle, willing him to look at her, just once. He didn't. Instead, he turned to face the pack. I choose strength, he said. I choose Silverpine's future. I will take a mate worthy of an alpha. The crowd erupted in howls of approval. Someone, Marcus, one of Kale's enforcers, started chanting, Strength! 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 Others joined in. The sound was deafening. Seraphine felt something inside her crack. Not the bond. That was still tearing, still bleeding, something deeper. Something that had believed, despite everything, that she mattered. Iris tugged her arm harder. Sarah, we need to leave. Now! This time, Seraphine let herself be pulled away. She stumbled through the crowd, head down, as wolves stepped aside to let her pass. Some looked at her with pity. Most looked at her with contempt. One voice rose above the others. Natalia Frost, a warrior's daughter with silver blonde hair and a cruel smile. Guess you should have known better than to aim so high, healer. Laughter followed Seraphine all the way out of the clearing. She made it to the edge of the pack's territory before she collapsed. Iris caught her, easing her down onto the forest floor. Breathe, Sarah, just breathe. I can't. The bond was almost gone now, just a few threads left, and each one that snapped sent fresh agony through her chest. It hurts. Iris, it hurts so much. I know, honey, I know. Iris held her while she shook, while the last of the bond finally severed with a pain so sharp Seraphine screamed. When it was over, she lay on the ground gasping. The night air felt too cold. Everything felt wrong. What do I do? She whispered. Iris's face was grim. You survive. That's what you do. But surviving felt impossible. In the pack hierarchy, a rejected mate was barely above an omega. She'd lose her place in the healer's circle. No one would want to be associated with her. She'd be assigned the worst jobs, given the smallest rations, shunned at every gathering. And Kyle would move on. He'd choose someone strong, someone beautiful, someone worthy, someone who wasn't her. I should leave, Seraphine said. Don't be stupid. You can't survive out there alone. I can't survive here either. Iris started to argue, but footsteps interrupted her. They both looked up to see 3 women approaching, pack enforcers, all warriors, all loyal to Alpha Gareth. The leader, a scarred woman named Vera, looked down at Seraphine with cold eyes. You're to report to the Alpha's house tomorrow at dawn. You'll be reassigned. Reassigned to what? Omega work, cleaning, cooking, laundry, whatever needs doing. Vera's lip curled. Should suit someone of your abilities. Seraphine felt Iris tense beside her, ready to fight, but fighting would only make things worse. Fine, Seraphine said quietly. Vera looked disappointed that she hadn't argued. Dawn, she repeated. Don't be late. The enforcers left. Iris helped Seraphine to her feet. You're not actually going to do it, are you? Iris demanded. What choice do I have? You could... Iris stopped. There was no good answer. Running meant death. Staying meant humiliation. Seraphine looked toward the pack house in the distance, its windows glowing warm in the darkness. Somewhere in there, Kael was probably celebrating, accepting congratulations, maybe already eyeing potential mates. The thought made her sick. Take me home, she said to Iris. Her home was a small cabin on the outer edge of the territory, fitting for a healer who'd never ranked high enough to live in the main compound. Inside, it was simple but clean. One room with a bed, a table, and shelves lined with herbs and medicines. Iris stayed with her through the night. Neither of them slept. Thus, dawn came too soon. Seraphine dressed in her plainest clothes and braided her dark hair back. In the mirror, she looked pale, her green eyes too bright in her thin face. She looked exactly like what she was. Broken. You don't have to do this, Iris said one more time. But Seraphine was already out the door. The walk to the Alpha's house took 20 minutes. With every step, she felt eyes on her. Word had spread fast. By now, everyone knew she'd been rejected. Everyone knew she'd been demoted. A group of young warriors passed her on the path. One of them, a boy barely old enough to shift, actually spat at her feet. Seraphine kept walking. At the Alpha's house, a house manager named Portia was waiting. She was a thin, sharp-faced woman who looked at Seraphine like she was something that had crawled out of the garbage. You're late, Portia snapped. Seraphine glanced at the sun. It's barely past dawn. Don't talk back. You're Omega now. That means you do what you're told, when you're told, without question. Understand? Seraphine bit her tongue and nodded. Good. The Alpha is hosting a dinner tonight for the council. You'll help prepare. Portia thrust a bucket and scrub brush into her hands. Start with the floors in the main hall, on your hands and knees. I want them spotless. The main hall was enormous, easily 2,000 square feet of hardwood. Seraphine looked at the bucket, then at the floor, then at Portia's satisfied smirk. This was a test, an initiation into her new life. She got on her knees and started scrubbing. Hours passed. Her back ached. Her hands blistered. Other pack members walked through the hall, tracking in dirt she'd just cleaned, not even glancing at her. Around midday, she heard familiar voices approaching. She kept her head down, scrubbing harder. Can't believe you actually went through with it, someone was saying. Marcus, Kael's enforcer. It was necessary. Kael's voice sent a jolt through her. He was close, maybe 10 feet away. Yeah, but still, that was cold, man. Even for you. She'll be fine. Healers are always needed. As an Omega? Come on, you basically destroyed her. A pause, then Kael said, voice flat, she'll survive. They were walking past her now. Seraphine didn't look up, didn't move, just kept scrubbing even though her vision had gone blurry. She heard their footsteps stop. Is that? Marcus started. Keep walking, Kael said sharply. But Marcus laughed, a cruel sound. Damn, look how far she's fallen. Hey, healer, you missed a spot. Seraphine's hand stilled on the brush. Marcus. Kael's voice held a warning. What? She's Omega now. She has to take orders from anyone. Marcus walked closer. Seraphine could see his boots in her peripheral vision. I said you missed a spot. Right here. He stepped deliberately in the middle of the section she'd just cleaned, grinding his heel into the wood. Something in Seraphine snapped. She looked up, meeting Marcus's eyes. Move. He blinked, surprised. Then his face darkened. What did you just say to me? I said move. Seraphine stood slowly, still holding the scrub brush. You're making more work for yourself, you know. When you step in dirty water, you track it everywhere. Then someone has to clean that too. So unless you want to get down here and scrub, I suggest you watch where you walk. Marcus's face went red. You little... That's enough. Cale's voice cut through the air like a blade. Seraphine finally looked at him. He stood a few feet back, arms crossed, his face unreadable. He was dressed in formal clothes, black shirt, dark pants, the silver crest of Silverpine on his chest. He looked every inch the Alpha's heir. He looked nothing like the boy who used to bring her wildflowers when they were young. She's being disrespectful, Marcus said. She's right, Kyle replied. You're tracking mud everywhere. Move. Marcus looked mutinous, but he obeyed. As he stalked away, he shot Seraphine a look that promised retribution later. Seraphine didn't care. She was too busy staring at Kyle. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kale said quietly, You should keep your head down. Or what? You'll reject me again? His jaw tightened. This isn't a game, Seraphine. You're Omega now. That means, I know what it means. She gripped the brush harder. It means I'm nothing. It means you made sure of that. I did what was necessary for the pack. For the pack, right. She laughed, a bitter sound. Tell me, Kyle, when you chose the pack over me, did it hurt? Or did you feel nothing at all? Something flickered in his eyes. Seraphine, don't. She stepped back, nearly knocking over the bucket. Don't say my name like we're still something to each other. You made your choice. I'm living with it, so just leave me alone. She turned back to the floor, got on her knees, and started scrubbing again. She heard him stand there for another moment. Then, finally, his footsteps retreated. When he was gone, Seraphine let the tears come. They dripped into the bucket, mixing with the dirty water. This was her life now. She scrubbed until her hands bled. The dinner that night was torture. Seraphine worked in the kitchen alongside 5 other Omegas, all of them watching her with a mix of pity and satisfaction. The formerly high-ranked healer brought low. It was almost poetic. Through the door to the dining hall, she could hear laughter and conversation. The council was in good spirits. Alpha Gareth was holding court, telling stories, making pronouncements. And Kyle was there, sitting at his father's right hand, playing the perfect air. Take these out, Portia ordered, shoving a platter of meat into Seraphine's hands. Don't spill anything. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for the love of the moon, don't embarrass us. Seraphine carried the platter into the dining hall. 30 pairs of eyes turned to look at her. The conversation didn't stop, but it quieted. She felt their judgment like a weight. She moved around the table, serving each council member. Most ignored her. A few muttered thanks. One, an older man named Silas, leaned back and said loudly, Funny how the moon works, isn't it? Some people rise, some people fall, all according to what they deserve. Laughter rippled around the table. Seraphine kept her face blank and moved to the next seat. She made the mistake of glancing at Kyle. He was staring at his plate, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists on either side of his silverware. He looked angry, but he said nothing. When she finished serving, she escaped back to the kitchen. She made it to the wash basin before her hands started shaking so badly she had to grip the edge to stay upright. First day's always the worst, said a voice beside her. Seraphine looked up to find an older Omega woman with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes. Her name was Marta, and she'd been working in the Alpha's house for years. Does it get better? Seraphine asked. Marta hesitated. You get used to it. That wasn't the same thing. Seraphine worked until midnight, cleaning dishes, scrubbing pots, mopping floors. By the time Portia finally dismissed her, she could barely stand. The walk back to her cabin was dark and cold. Halfway there, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around to find Marcus and 2 other young warriors blocking her path. Going somewhere, healer? Marcus asked with a nasty smile. Seraphine's heart started to race. Get out of my way. Or what? You'll tell the Alpha? He laughed. You don't have any protection anymore. No rank, no mate. You're nothing. The other 2 warriors spread out, flanking her. This was bad. Seraphine's wolf stirred inside her, ready to fight, but she knew it was useless. She was a healer, trained to save lives, not end them. She'd never win against 3 warriors. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "An apology," Marcus said, "for disrespecting me earlier. I didn't—" "On your knees." Seraphine's blood went cold. "No." Marcus's eyes flashed gold. "That wasn't a request." He stepped forward. Seraphine stepped back. Her shoulders hit a tree, trapped. Marcus reached for her, and a voice like thunder split the night. "Touch her, and I'll rip your throat out." Everyone froze. Kael stood 20 feet away, his eyes blazing gold, his alpha presence rolling off him in waves so strong it made the air feel heavy. Marcus immediately dropped to one knee. "Alpha Air, I don't care." Kael walked forward slowly, deliberately. When he reached Marcus, he leaned down and said, soft and deadly, "If I ever see you near her again, I will kill you. Do you understand?" Marcus was shaking. "Yes, Alpha Air. Get out of my sight." The 3 warriors scattered like leaves in a storm. When they were gone, Kael turned to Seraphine. The gold in his eyes faded back to dark brown. For a moment, he just looked at her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Seraphine's throat was too tight to speak. She shook her head. "Good." He ran a hand through his dark hair, suddenly looking exhausted. "You shouldn't be walking alone at night. It's not safe." "I didn't exactly have a choice. Someone has to clean your father's house." He flinched. "Seraphine, why did you do it?" The question burst out of her before she could stop it. "Why reject me? If you cared enough to just save me from Marcus, why did you throw me away in the first place?" Kael's face went carefully blank. "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicate it." "I can't." "Can't or won't?" He didn't answer. Seraphine laughed, a broken sound. "You know what the worst part is? I actually thought you loved me. I thought what we had meant something, but I was just convenient, wasn't I? Until I wasn't." "That's not true." "Then what is true, Kael? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you chose power over me without a second thought." His hands clenched into fists. "My father—" "Your father what? Threatened you? Told you to reject me?" She stepped closer. "Did he give you a choice? Or did you just obey like a good little heir?" Kael's eyes flashed gold again. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the pack's future." "I don't care about the pack," Seraphine shouted. "I care about you. I cared about us." But apparently, that wasn't enough. They stood there breathing hard, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. Finally, Kael said, voice rough, "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this." "I know." Seraphine felt tears burning behind her eyes again. She was so tired, tired of hurting, tired of being strong, tired of pretending she could survive this. "Just leave me alone," she whispered. "Please. If you ever cared about me at all, just stay away." She walked past him, heading for her cabin. This time, he didn't follow. 3 days later, everything changed. Seraphine was gathering herbs in the forest at dawn, one of the few healer duties she was still allowed. When she heard it, a howl, distant, pained, desperate, her healer instincts kicked in immediately. She dropped her basket and ran toward the sound. She found him in a ravine half a mile into forbidden territory, lying in a pool of blood. The wolf was massive, easily twice the size of a normal shifter. Its fur was midnight black, matted with dirt and gore. Deep claw marks raked across its side, still bleeding. One of its back legs was bent at an unnatural angle. It was dying. Seraphine should have run. Forbidden territory was named that for a reason. Other packs, rogues, things worse than wolves. And this wolf was clearly a warrior, probably from an enemy pack. But she couldn't leave it. She approached slowly, hands raised. "Easy," she murmured. "I'm a healer. I can help." The wolf's eyes opened, gold, fierce, filled with pain and rage. And recognition. No, it couldn't be. But even as a wolf, she knew those eyes. "Kael." "What happened to you?" she breathed. He tried to shift back to human form and failed. Whatever had hurt him badly enough to trap him in wolf form. A dangerous sign. Seraphine didn't have time to think. She knelt beside him and pressed her hands to the worst of the wounds. Healing magic was her gift, weak by warrior standards, but strong enough to knit flesh and bone. She poured everything she had into him, feeling her own energy drain as his wounds began to close. The claw marks sealed, the broken leg straightened. But there was something else, something dark and poisonous in his blood. Wolfsbane, maybe, or something worse. She couldn't fix that here. "We have to get you back to the pack," she said. "Can you walk?" Kyle struggled to his feet, swaying. He was still massive, still dangerous, but now he was also vulnerable. And he was looking at her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had turned to quicksand. Seraphine stood. "Come on, stay close to me." They made it halfway back before they were surrounded. Wolves melted out of the forest, dozens of them, all from Silverpine, all armed and ready for a fight. Leading them was Alpha Gareth himself. He shifted to human form, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him, the pack remained in wolf form, growling, circling. "Step away from my son," Gareth commanded. Seraphine moved in front of Kyle instead. "He's hurt. He needs help." "I can see that." Gareth's eyes narrowed. "What I want to know is what you were doing in Forbidden Territory and why my heir is injured." "I found him in a ravine. He was attacked. By whom?" "I don't know. I was gathering herbs when I heard him." Gareth studied her with cold, calculating eyes. Behind her, Kyle whined, a low, warning sound. "Marcus," Gareth said, "take Kale back to the pack house. Get the healers." Marcus stepped forward in human form, reaching for Kale. Kale snapped at him, teeth bared. Marcus jumped back. "What the—" Kale moved to Seraphine's side and pressed against her leg, still growling. A murmur ran through the pack. This was wrong. An Alpha's heir didn't cower behind an Omega, didn't refuse orders from enforcers, didn't act like he belonged to someone. Gareth's face darkened. "Kyle, stand down." Kale didn't move. "That's an Alpha command. Stand down." Still nothing. Seraphine felt the tension in the air shift to something dangerous. She put a hand on Kyle's head, feeling the rigid muscles beneath his fur. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'll come with you. We'll go together." Kyle finally relaxed, just slightly. Gareth's expression had gone from angry to something else, something thoughtful and cold. "Very well, he said. "Bring them both." The walk back to the pack house was a nightmare. Wolves flanked them on all sides, and Seraphine could feel their eyes on her, their suspicion and hostility like a living thing. At her side, Kyle limped, favoring his newly healed leg. Every few steps he pressed closer to her, as if reminding himself she was still there. Something was very, very wrong with him. When they reached the pack house, Gareth led them to a private room. Not the healer's wing, Seraphine noticed. Somewhere isolated. "Wait here," he ordered. Then to the guards, "No one enters, no one leaves." The door closed, the lock clicked. They were alone. Kale finally shifted back to human form, collapsing onto the floor, naked and shaking. Seraphine grabbed a blanket from the bed and wrapped it around him. "Kyle, what happened? Who did this to you?" He looked up at her, and his eyes were still that eerie, bright gold. "They set a trap," he said, his voice hoarse. "Ambush in the Forbidden Zone, rival pack. They wanted to kill me. Weakened Silverpine. Did you recognize them? Blood Moon pack, at least 6 warriors." He laughed bitterly. "I killed 3 before they got me. Wolfsbane in their claws. I barely made it to the ravine before I passed out." Seraphine's blood ran cold. Blood Moon was the most vicious pack in the region. If they were targeting Kale, it meant war was coming. "You should tell your father," she said. "He knows. Why do you think he's keeping us locked in here?" Kale grabbed her wrist, his grip desperate. "Seraphine, something's wrong with me." "What do you mean?" "The wolfsbane. It's not just poison, it's doing something to me, to my wolf." His eyes searched hers. "When I woke up in that ravine and saw you, I couldn't think about anything else. Getting back to you, staying with you, and now—" He released her wrist and pressed his hands to his head. "Now I can't stand the thought of you leaving this room." "Oh no." "Kyle," Seraphine said carefully, "when I healed you, I poured a lot of magic into you, and you were dying, which means your wolf was vulnerable. If there was wolfsbane in your system and I created a bond while trying to save your life, what are you saying? I think we're bound. The words hung in the air between them. Kale stared at her. That's impossible. I rejected you. The mate bond is broken. This isn't a mate bond. It's a life debt. Older, stronger, unbreakable. She swallowed hard. In the old laws, if you save an alpha's life, they're bound to you until the debt is repaid. Their wolf sees you as pack, as protection, as mine, Kyle finished. His voice had dropped to something rough and possessive. You're mine now. No, it's the other way around. You're bound to me. He was on his feet in an instant, the blanket falling away. He backed her against the wall, one hand braced beside her head, his eyes blazing. Then we're both in trouble, he said, because I can't tell where the bond ends and I begin. Seraphine's heart was racing. He was too close, too intense, too everything. KL, you need to calm down. I've been trying to calm down for 3 days, he growled. I've been trying to convince myself that rejecting you was the right choice, that I could move on, that what we had didn't matter. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. And then you saved my life. And now I can't breathe without knowing where you are. That's the bond talking. Is it? His free hand came up to cup her face. Because it feels like something I should have said months ago. The door burst open. Alpha Gareth stood there, flanked by 4 council members and 2 healers. Kale didn't move away from Seraphine. If anything, he shifted to block her from view. Gareth's eyes narrowed. Everyone out, except you 2. The others left reluctantly. When the door closed again, Gareth walked in a slow circle around them. Well, he said finally. This is unfortunate, Kyle growled. Actually growled at his own father. Gareth raised an eyebrow. Still protective, I see. Tell me, Seraphine, what did you do to my son? I saved his life, she said. You bound him. Not intentionally. Intent doesn't matter. The result is the same. Gareth stopped pacing and fixed her with a cold stare. You've created a life debt. Do you know what that means? It means until the debt is repaid. It means my heir is compromised, Gareth interrupted. Unable to make clear decisions. Unable to lead. All because a weak little healer couldn't resist playing with magic she doesn't understand. Kale's growl deepened. Don't talk to her like that. You see? Gareth gestured at him. He can't even think straight. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent when I ordered you to reject her. Ordered. The word hung in the air. Seraphine looked at Kyle. He ordered you? Kyle wouldn't meet her eyes. Of course I did, Gareth said. The moment I realized you 2 had formed a mate bond, I knew it had to be severed. You're a liability, girl. Weak blood, weak wolf, weak magic. Everything about you screams weakness, and Silverpine cannot afford a weak Luna. Seraphine felt like she'd been slapped, but beneath the hurt, something else was rising. Something that had been building for days. Anger. You're right, she said quietly. I'm weak. I can't fight like your warriors. I can't hunt like your trackers. I can't command like your alphas. She stepped out from behind Kyle, meeting Gareth's eyes directly. But I saved your son's life when your warriors couldn't even find him. I healed wounds that should have killed him. And I created a bond strong enough to override your rejection command. She smiled, sharp and cold. So maybe I'm not as weak as you think. For a long moment, Gareth just stared at her. Then he laughed. You have spirit, I'll give you that. His smile disappeared, which is why I'm going to give you a choice. Break the bond, leave Silverpine territory, and I'll make sure you're set up somewhere safe. Or refuse and watch what happens when I make an example of you in front of the pack. Father, Kale started, this doesn't concern you. You're compromised. The council and I will handle this. The council serves you, Seraphine said. They'll do whatever you say. Exactly, which means you have no allies, no protection, no hope of winning this fight. Gareth moved to the door. You have until tomorrow night to decide. Choose wisely. He left. In the silence that followed, Seraphine felt the weight of everything crashing down on her. 3 days ago, she'd been nothing. Then she'd saved Kael's life and somehow made everything worse. Seraphine. Kael's voice was rough. I'm sorry. I should have told you. About my father, about the rejection, about all of it. Would it have made a difference? I don't know. She turned to look at him. He stood in the middle of the room, still wrapped in the blanket, looking lost in a way she'd never seen him look before. "What are you going to do?" he asked. Seraphine thought about Gareth's ultimatum. Leave Silverpine, give up everything she'd ever known. Walk away from the pack, from her home, from the man who'd rejected her and was now bound to her by a magic neither of them understood. She thought about 3 days of scrubbing floors and swallowing insults and being treated like garbage. She thought about Marcus's boot grinding into the wood she'd just cleaned, about Natalia's cruel laughter, about Kael standing silent while the council mocked her. And she made a decision. "I'm not leaving," she said. Kael's eyes went wide. "Seraphine, you don't understand what he'll do." "I understand perfectly. He'll try to humiliate me, hurt me, drive me out." She smiled, and it was nothing kind. "But I'm done running. I'm done being weak. Your father wants me gone. He's going to have to drag me out of here himself." "He will." "Then let him try." She walked to the door and found it locked from the outside. She knocked. A guard opened it. "What?" "I need to speak with Iris, my friend. She lives in the healer's quarter. No visitors." "Then bring her here. I'll wait." The guard looked uncertain. The Alpha said no one leaves. He didn't say I couldn't have visitors." Seraphine met his eyes steadily. "Get her, please." The guard hesitated, then nodded and closed the door. 20 minutes later, Iris burst into the room, immediately pulling Seraphine into a crushing hug. "What the hell is going on?" Iris demanded. "The whole pack is talking about you and Kael locked in a room together, and something about a life debt, and—" She noticed Kael standing in the corner, and her eyes went wide. "Oh, it's true." "It's complicated," Seraphine said. "Complicated is your middle name lately." Iris pulled back, studying her face. "Are you okay?" "No, but I will be." Seraphine took a breath. "I need your help." "Anything." "Gareth gave me an ultimatum. Leave Silverpine or face the council tomorrow night." "Sarah, you have to leave. You can't win against the Alpha and the entire council." "I know. That's why I'm not going to fight them." Seraphine smiled. "I'm going to make them need me." Kael straightened. "What?" "The Blood Moon Pack attacked you," Seraphine said. "That means they're planning something bigger. A war, maybe. And when war comes, what does every pack need?" "Warriors," Kael said slowly. "And?" His eyes widened. "Healers. Strong healers. Skilled healers. Healers who can bring warriors back from the edge of death." Seraphine felt the pieces clicking into place. "Gareth called me weak. But if I can prove I'm valuable, if I can prove that Silverpine needs me, he won't be able to exile me without looking like a fool." "That's insane," Iris said. "How are you going to prove that by tomorrow night?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." Kael was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "You've changed," he said quietly. "You rejected me in front of 300 wolves and turned my life into a nightmare. Change was inevitable." He flinched but didn't look away. "For what it's worth, I'm glad. Glad you destroyed me? Glad you're not staying destroyed." Seraphine didn't know what to say to that. Iris looked between them. "This is weird. You two are so weird now." "Tell me about it," Seraphine muttered. A knock at the door interrupted them. Another guard. "The Alpha wants to see the girl," he announced. Seraphine's stomach dropped. "Now?" "Now." She glanced at Kael. He looked ready to tear the door off its hinges. "It's fine," she said. "I'll go." "The hell you will," Kael growled. "Not without me. You're not exactly in a position to make demands. Watch me." The guard looked uncomfortable. "The Alpha said just the girl, and I'm saying she's not going anywhere alone." Kael's eyes flashed gold. "You can tell my father that, or I can tell him myself. Your choice." The guard wisely chose to retreat and return a few minutes later with a different message. "The Alpha says you can both come, but if there's any trouble—" "There won't be," Seraphine said. They followed the guard through the pack house. Wolves stopped and stared as they passed. Whispers followed them like a shadow. Gareth was waiting in his private office, along with 3 council members. When Seraphine and Kael entered, all eyes turned to them. "I see my son has attached himself to you," Gareth observed. The bond is strong, Seraphine said simply. Too strong, which is why we need to deal with this quickly. Gareth gestured to the council members. These men have been researching life debts. It seems there is a way to break the bond. Seraphine's heart sank. How? Death, said one of the council members, an old wolf named Thorn. Either you die or he dies, and the debt is severed. Kale snarled. Not happening. Or, Gareth continued, you can perform a ritual of severance, ancient magic, painful, dangerous, but effective. And if I refuse, Seraphine asked, then I challenge you under pack law, trial by combat, you against Natalia Frost, who has volunteered to defend the pack's honor. Natalia, the warrior's daughter, the strongest female fighter in the pack under 30. Seraphine would last maybe 30 seconds against her. You're rigging this, she said flatly. I'm offering you options. That's more generous than most alphas would be. You're offering me execution in 3 different forms. Gareth smiled. Smart girl. Now you understand the position you're in. Seraphine felt the walls closing in. She couldn't win a fight. She couldn't perform a ritual she knew nothing about. And she sure as hell wasn't dying, which left only one option. I want to speak to the whole pack, she said. Gareth raised an eyebrow. Why? Because if you're going to destroy me, I deserve a chance to say my piece. Pack law allows it. You'd just embarrass yourself. Maybe, but it's my right. Gareth studied her for a long moment. Then he shrugged. Fine, tomorrow night. Full moon gathering. You can have your say before the trial begins. It wasn't much, but it was something. As they were escorted back to the locked room, Kael leaned close and whispered, What are you planning? I have no idea, Seraphine admitted. Then why ask to speak? Because I'm done letting them control the narrative. If I'm going down fighting. Back in the room, Iris was waiting with food and blankets. She'd somehow convinced the guards to let her stay. Well, she asked. We have until tomorrow night, Seraphine said, and I need to figure out how to survive a trial by combat against Natalia Frost. You can't fight her. She'll kill you. I know. So what are you going to do? Seraphine looked at Kael, who was watching her with those intense gold eyes, and felt the bond humming between them, foreign, unwanted, undeniable. I'm going to change the game, she said. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something almost like hope. The night before the trial, Seraphine couldn't sleep. She lay on the small cot in the locked room, staring at the ceiling while Iris snored softly on a pile of blankets in the corner. Across the room, Kael sat against the wall, his eyes reflecting the moonlight coming through the barred window. He hadn't slept either. The bond thrummed between them like a second heartbeat. She could feel his restlessness, his anger, his fear. Not for himself, for her. You should rest, he said quietly. Can't. Seraphine, don't. She sat up, wrapping her arms around her knees. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. We both know it's not. He was silent for a moment. Then he stood and crossed to her cot, sitting on the edge. This close, she could see the tension in his jaw, the dark circles under his eyes. I won't let Natalia kill you, he said. You don't have a choice. Pack law. I don't care about pack law. His voice was fierce. I'll stop the fight before it starts. You'll what? Challenge your own father? Start a civil war? Seraphine shook her head. That's exactly what he's counting on. He thinks the bond will make you reckless, unstable. And if you prove him right, he wins. Kael's hands clenched into fists. So what do you want me to do? Just stand there and watch? I want you to trust me. Trust you to do what? She didn't have an answer. Her plan, if it could even be called that, was half-formed at best, desperate at worst. I'm going to tell them the truth, she said finally. What truth? That your father is wrong about me, about what I am. She met his eyes. When I healed you in that ravine, I felt something. The magic that came through me. It wasn't just healing, it was older, stronger, like I was tapping into something I didn't know was there. Kael frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't think I'm as weak as everyone believes. I think there's something in my bloodline that nobody knows about. Something that's been dormant. And you think you can prove this in one night? I have to try. Before Kael could respond, the door unlocked. A guard stepped in, different from the others, younger, with nervous eyes. "Someone to see you," he said, and stepped aside. An old woman shuffled into the room. She was tiny, hunched with age, her hair a wild gray cloud around her weathered face. But her eyes were sharp and dark as obsidian. Seraphine recognized her immediately. Grandmother Mora, the pack's eldest healer, the one who'd trained Seraphine before she'd retired 5 years ago. "Out," Mora said to the guard. The Alpha said, "I don't care what Gareth said. This is healer business. Out!" The guard fled. Mora shut the door and turned those sharp eyes on Seraphine. "So, you've made quite the mess, girl." "I didn't mean to, Intent doesn't matter. Results do." Mora hobbled closer, studying Seraphine's face. "Let me see your hands." Seraphine held them out. Mora gripped them, her fingers surprisingly strong, and closed her eyes. The room went very quiet. After a long moment, Mora released her and stepped back, her expression unreadable. "Well?" Kyle asked. "Shut up, boy. I'm thinking." Mora pulled a small vial from her pocket and handed it to Seraphine. "Drink this." "What is it?" "Truth serum. Old recipe. If there's something dormant in your blood, this will wake it up, temporarily." Seraphine stared at the vial. The liquid inside was dark red, almost black. "What will it do to me?" "Hurt like hell. Maybe kill you. Maybe save your life." Mora shrugged. "But if you're going into that trial tomorrow, you'll need every advantage you can get. You're helping me?" "I'm helping the pack. Gareth's a fool if he thinks driving out a healer as skilled as you makes Silverpine stronger." Mora's eyes hardened. "Besides, I trained you. If you're going to die, you'll do it with your head up and your power blazing. Understand?" Seraphine felt something hot and fierce bloom in her chest. "Yes." "Good. Drink it now. You'll need time to adjust before the trial." Seraphine uncorked the vial and drank. The liquid burned going down, tasting of copper and bitter herbs and something ancient. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain hit. It felt like her blood had turned to molten metal. She gasped, doubling over, and Kale caught her before she hit the floor. "What's happening to her?" he demanded. "Her magic is waking up. Don't interrupt." Mora watched with clinical interest as Seraphine writhed. "It'll pass." It didn't feel like it would pass. It felt like she was being torn apart from the inside. Her wolf clawed at her mind, trying to shift, but something held it back. The magic in her veins was changing, expanding, becoming something she didn't recognize. Images flashed through her mind, ancient forests, cities of white stone, wolves that walked like men and women who commanded fire and ice and earth itself, bloodlines stretching back centuries. A name, whispered in a language she'd never learned but somehow understood: Silvershade. The pain peaked and then suddenly released. Seraphine collapsed against Kyle, shaking and drenched in sweat. "What did you do to me?" she gasped. Mora smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. "I woke up what your mother tried to hide." Seraphine's head snapped up. "My mother? What do you know about my mother?" "More than you, apparently. Your mother was Silvershade bloodline, old magic, royal magic. She fled her pack 20 years ago and hid here, pretending to be a common healer. She bound your power before you were born, so you'd be safe, so you'd be overlooked." The room spun. "That's impossible. My mother was nobody. She died when I was 10. She died protecting the secret, and now I've just undone her life's work." Mora didn't look sorry. "You wanted to prove you're not weak? Well, congratulations. You're probably one of the most powerful healers this pack has seen in generations, maybe ever." Kale was staring at Seraphina like he'd never seen her before. "Why didn't anyone know?" "Because your father would have killed her," Mora said bluntly. "Gareth doesn't tolerate threats to his power. A Silvershade healer could challenge his authority, unite the lesser wolves, maybe even take the pack from him. So your mother hid. She was smart. But her daughter?" Mora looked at Seraphine. "You're about to do the exact opposite." Seraphine's mind was reeling. Her mother, quiet, gentle, always so careful, had been running from something, hiding Seraphine. "The trial," she said. "If I show them what I can do, Gareth will see you as an even bigger threat, but he'll also see that killing you will turn the pack against him. Healers are revered, powerful healers even more so." Mora's smile sharpened. You're going to walk into that trial and make them choose, you or Gareth. That's insane, Kael said. That's survival. Mora turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing, girl. The power you just woke up, it'll burn through you fast. Use too much, and it'll kill you just as surely as Natalia's claws. So be smart about how you spend it. She left. In the silence that followed, Seraphine became aware of Kael's arms still around her, his heart pounding against her back. Let go, she said softly. No. Kael. I said no. His voice was rough. You just found out your entire life is a lie, and you're about to walk into a fight that could kill you. So forgive me if I need a minute to process the fact that I rejected the one person who might actually be stronger than my father. Seraphine twisted in his arms to look at him. His eyes were still gold, still fierce, but there was something else there now. Awe, maybe. Or fear. I'm still the same person, she said. Are you? She didn't know how to answer that. The magic humming under her skin felt foreign and familiar at the same time, like a language she'd forgotten and was only now remembering. Iris chose that moment to wake up with a snort. What did I miss? Everything, Seraphine said. By the time she explained, Iris was pacing the room like a caged wolf. Okay. So you're secretly magical royalty, Gareth's terrified of you, and tomorrow you're going to reveal all of this in front of the entire pack. That's the plan. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? Iris stopped pacing. Actually, yes. We run. Right now. There are 3 of us. We can overpower the guards, get to the border, disappear before anyone notices. And abandon the pack? Seraphine shook her head. I can't do that. Why not? They've done nothing but treat you like garbage. Because they're still my pack. And because if I run, Gareth wins. He gets to tell everyone I was a coward, a manipulator, a threat. Everything he's already said about me becomes truth. Who cares what he says if you're alive? I care. Seraphine stood, feeling the new magic steady her. For 3 days, I scrubbed floors and bit my tongue and let them treat me like I was nothing. I'm done with that. If I'm going to have power, I'm going to use it. Kael was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You sound like an alpha. I'm not an alpha. I'm just tired of losing. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. Seraphine tried to meditate, to understand the magic that now flowed through her veins, but it was wild and slippery, refusing to be controlled. She managed to heal a small cut on her palm, watched it close in seconds instead of minutes, and felt a rush of exhilaration followed by crushing exhaustion. Mora had been right. This power would burn her up if she wasn't careful. Dawn came too soon. Guards arrived to escort them to the ceremonial grounds, the same place where Kael had rejected her 4 days ago. It felt like a lifetime. The pack was already assembled, 300 wolves, maybe more, all watching as Seraphine was led to the center of the clearing. A fighting circle had been marked in the dirt, easily 40 feet across. Natalia Frost stood on the opposite side, already in fighting stance. She wore leather armor that left her arms bare, showing off the scars and muscles of a born warrior. Her silver blonde hair was pulled back in a tight braid, and her smile was pure predator. Ready to bleed, healer? She called across the circle. Seraphine didn't answer. She was too busy looking at the crowd. Familiar faces stared back at her, some hostile, some curious, some pitying. She found Mora standing near the front, her expression neutral. Alpha Gareth stood on a raised platform with the council members flanking him. He looked satisfied, like this was already over. Before we begin, Gareth announced, the accused has requested to speak. Pack law allows this. He gestured to Seraphine. Make it quick. This was it. Her one chance. Seraphine stepped forward. Her legs felt unsteady, her mouth dry, but she forced herself to speak clearly. 4 days ago, I was rejected in this exact spot, she began. Kael Draven stood where his father stands now and told all of you that I was weak, worthless, not fit to be a Luna. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Kael, standing with the enforcers, had gone very still. And you know what? He was right. Murmurs rippled through the pack. I was weak, Seraphine continued. Not in magic or healing, I've always been good at that, but weak in spirit. I let myself believe that being quiet and helpful and small would keep me safe. I let myself think that if I just didn't cause trouble, I'd be accepted. She laughed, bitter. I was wrong. Get to the point, Gareth snapped. The point is that I'm done being small. I'm done apologizing for existing. She looked directly at Gareth. You want to exile me because you think I'm a threat. And you're right about that too, but not for the reasons you think. She raised her hands, and the magic that had been simmering under her skin suddenly blazed to life. Green light poured from her palms, bright and wild, filling the clearing with the scent of growing things and ancient forests. The crowd gasped. Several wolves stepped back. My mother was Silver Shade bloodline, Seraphine said, her voice carrying over the shocked murmurs. She hid it from all of you because she knew what Gareth would do if he found out. She bound my power so I'd be safe. But she's gone now, and I'm done hiding. The green light intensified. Seraphine felt it flowing through her, responding to her will in ways her normal healing magic never had. She directed it toward a dead tree at the edge of the clearing, a massive oak that had been struck by lightning years ago. The tree shuddered. Green shoots burst from the blackened wood. Branches that had been barren for years suddenly bloomed with leaves. In seconds, the dead tree was alive again, its canopy full and green. The silence was absolute. Then someone in the crowd started whispering. The whisper became a murmur, became a roar. Silver Shade. Life magic. That's impossible. Gareth's face had gone pale with rage. Enough! This changes nothing. She's still bound to my son through forbidden magic. She's still a threat to pack stability. Is she? Moore's voice cut through the noise. The old healer stepped into the circle. Or is she exactly what Silverpine needs? We're about to go to war with Blood Moon Pack. They've already struck once. They'll strike again. And when they do, we'll need healers strong enough to keep our warriors alive. She looked at Gareth. You want to exile the one healer who can bring the dead back to life? The crowd murmured agreement. Several heads nodded. Gareth's jaw tightened. The trial stands. If she wants to prove she's strong, let her fight. Fine, Seraphine said. I'll fight. She turned to face Natalia, who looked considerably less confident than she had a few minutes ago. But not like this, Seraphine continued. Not in a rigged fight where you all watch me get torn apart for entertainment. If I'm going to prove my strength, it'll be on my terms. You don't make the terms, Gareth said. Actually, I do. Pack law says I can choose the nature of the challenge. Seraphine smiled. I choose a healer's challenge. Bring me your most wounded warrior, someone at death's door, and I'll bring them back. If I succeed, you have to accept that I'm not weak. If I fail, I'll leave Silverpine territory and never return. It was a gamble, a huge one, but it was better than getting her throat ripped out by Natalia. Gareth looked furious. There are no wounded warriors. There's me, said a voice from the crowd. Everyone turned. An enforcer named Derek stumbled into the clearing, supported by two other wolves. He was a massive man, easily 6'5", built like a truck, but now he looked like a walking corpse. His skin was gray, his eyes sunken, and his breathing came in shallow gasps. Blood Moon ambush, Derek rasped. 3 days ago, same time they got Kale. Wolfsbane. In the blood. Healers tried. Couldn't fix it. He collapsed. Seraphine rushed to his side, her hands already glowing green. She could feel it immediately. The poison was deep, wrapped around his heart and lungs, slowly crushing the life out of him. This is going to hurt, she warned. Derek managed a weak smile. Can't hurt worse than dying. Seraphine took a breath and plunged her magic into him. The poison fought back immediately, dark and writhing and alive. It had been in his system for days, growing stronger, and now it resisted her like a living thing. She poured more power into the healing, felt the magic burning through her veins like wildfire. Derek screamed. Around them, the pack watched in horrified silence as green light battled black poison inside Derek's body. Seraphine could feel herself weakening, the power draining faster than she'd expected. Mora's warning echoed in her mind. Use too much and it'll kill you. But she couldn't stop. Not now. Not with 300 pairs of eyes watching. She pushed deeper, grabbing the poison at its root and yanking it free. Derek convulsed, his back arching off the ground. Blood poured from his nose and mouth. Seraphine, stop! Kale's voice, desperate. You're killing him! I'm saving him! One final push. The poison came free all at once, dissolving into black smoke that dissipated in the air. Derek's breathing eased. Color returned to his face. His eyes opened, clear and aware. Seraphine collapsed beside him, shaking and drained. The crowd erupted. Wolves were shouting, some in amazement, some in fear. Derek sat up, staring at his hands like he couldn't believe they were his own. "I'm alive," he said wonderingly. "You're welcome," Seraphine managed. Mora appeared beside her, pressing a water skin to her lips. "Drink. You nearly burned yourself out." Seraphine drank, the cool water steadying her. When she looked up, she found Gareth staring at her with an expression that was part fury, part calculation. "She passed the challenge," Mora announced loudly. "By pack law, she stays." The crowd roared approval. Even Natalia looked impressed. But Gareth wasn't done. "The life debt still stands. She's bound to my son. That makes her a liability." "Then let me repay the debt," Kyle said. Everyone turned to look at him. He stepped into the circle, his eyes blazing gold. "A life debt is paid when the saved offers something of equal value to the savior," Kyle said. "I offer my protection, my loyalty, my strength." He knelt before Seraphine, right there in front of the entire pack. "I offer myself." The clearing went dead silent. Gareth's face turned purple. "Get up. Now." "No." Kale didn't take his eyes off Seraphine. "The bond isn't possession. It's recognition. She saved my life. She deserves everything I can give her." "You're compromised. I'm choosing." Kale's voice was firm. "For the first time since you ordered me to reject her, I'm making my own choice. And I choose her." The crowd was losing their minds. Wolves were howling, arguing, shouting questions. The council members looked stunned, and Seraphine felt the life debt shift. The bond that had been pulling Kyle to her, making him protective and possessive, suddenly changed. It didn't disappear. It transformed into something else, something voluntary, something that felt like choice. "The debt is paid," Mora announced. "By his own will, freely given. Pack law is satisfied." Gareth looked like he wanted to murder someone. "This isn't over." "Actually it is," said a new voice. A man stepped out of the forest at the edge of the clearing. He was tall and lean, with silver hair and eyes that glowed amber even in daylight. Behind him, at least 20 wolves emerged from the trees, all of them radiating power. The Blood Moon Pack. Seraphine's blood turned to ice. This wasn't a raid, this was an invasion. The leader, who could only be their alpha, smiled. "Gareth, we need to talk." Gareth recovered quickly. "This is Silverpine territory. You have no right. We have every right. You're harboring something that belongs to us." The Blood Moon Alpha's eyes fixed on Seraphine. "The Silvershade girl. We've been looking for her for 20 years. The clearing erupted into chaos. Silverpine warriors shifted, forming defensive lines. The Blood Moon wolves didn't move, just watched with predatory patience. Seraphine felt Kale move to stand beside her, his body tense and ready to fight. "She belongs to Silverpine," Gareth said, though he looked like the words tasted bitter. "She belongs to herself," the Blood Moon Alpha corrected. "But her mother made a deal with us before she died. A blood debt. The daughter pays the mother's debts." "What debt?" Seraphine demanded. "Your mother stole something from Blood Moon territory 20 years ago, something precious. She promised to return it or offer her firstborn as payment." The Alpha's smile widened. "Congratulations. Your payment." Seraphine's legs felt weak. "You're lying." "Am I?" The Alpha pulled something from his pocket, a small pendant on a silver chain. Even from a distance, Seraphine recognized it. Her mother used to wear it every day. "She gave this to me when she made the deal," the Alpha said, "swore on her blood and her child's life. Blood oaths don't expire, little Silvershade. They transfer." Kale snarled. "She's not going anywhere with you." "That's not your decision." "Like hell it isn't." "Stop." Seraphine put a hand on Kael's arm. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together what her mother could have possibly stolen that would warrant this. "What did she take?" The Blood Moon Alpha's eyes gleamed. "A seed from the Heart Tree, the source of all Silvershade magic." The world tilted. The Heart Tree was legend, supposed to be the first tree that ever grew, the root of all life magic. If her mother had stolen a seed from it... "That's why you're so powerful," Mora breathed. "She planted it in you, before you were born. The seed became part of you." Seraphine felt something shift inside her chest. not her heart, but something next to it, something that pulsed with green light and ancient power. "You want the seed," she said slowly. "We want our property returned. If that means cutting it out of you, so be it." The Blood Moon Alpha shrugged. "Or you come with us willingly, and we extract it carefully. Your choice." "She's not going with you," Kael repeated. "Then we'll take her by force, and anyone who tries to stop us dies." The Alpha looked at Gareth. "Including you." The Silver Pine pack bristled, ready to fight, but Seraphine could see the numbers. Blood Moon had brought their best warriors. This would be a slaughter. "Wait," she said. Everyone looked at her. "If I have the seed inside me and you cut it out, I die, right?" The Blood Moon Alpha hesitated. "Possibly." "Definitely," Mora said. "The seed is bonded to your life force. Remove it and you'll bleed out in minutes. So you can't have what you want without killing me, which means you have no leverage." Seraphine stepped forward, drawing on every ounce of courage she had left. "Here's my counteroffer. I'll give you the seed's power, one use, one healing, whatever you need, but it stays in me. In exchange, the blood debt is paid and Blood Moon leaves Silver Pine territory." "That's not enough. It's all you're getting, because if you try to take me by force, I'll destroy the seed myself, burn it up from the inside, then nobody gets it." The bluff was insane. She had no idea if she could actually do that, but the Blood Moon Alpha didn't know that. He studied her for a long moment. Then, to her shock, he started laughing. "You're just like your mother, stubborn, reckless, too smart for your own good." His laughter faded. "Fine. One use of the seed's power and the debt is paid. But I choose when and how it's used." "Agreed." "Seraphine, no," Kyle started. "It's done." She met the Blood Moon Alpha's eyes. "When do you want it?" "Soon. We have a warrior dying of the same poison that nearly killed your enforcer. Our healers can't save him." The Alpha's expression was unreadable. "You have 3 days. Come to Blood Moon territory, heal him, and we're done." 3 days? Alone? "You can bring one escort. Choose carefully." The Blood Moon pack melted back into the forest as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving chaos in their wake. Gareth rounded on Seraphine. "You just made a deal with our enemies without my permission." "I just prevented a war without your help," Seraphine shot back. "You're welcome." The two of them glared at each other. The pack watched, tense and silent. Finally, Gareth said, 3 days. You heal their warrior and come back. If you fail, or if you betray us, I'll hunt you down myself." "Understood." "And Kael stays here." "No," Kael and Seraphine said simultaneously. "He's the heir. I won't risk—" "He's my escort," Seraphine interrupted. "The bond makes him the logical choice. Unless you want to explain to the pack why you're sending me into enemy territory without proper protection." Gareth's jaw worked, but he knew when he was cornered. "Fine. 3 days. Both of you. Don't make me regret this." He stalked away, the council scrambling after him. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with conversation. Seraphine felt her legs finally give out. Kael caught her before she hit the ground. "You're insane," he said. "I'm surviving." "You just volunteered to walk into Blood Moon territory and use magic that might kill you. Better than letting them start a war here." Seraphine looked up at him. "Besides, you'll be with me." Something shifted in his expression. "You trust me?" "I trust the bond. And I trust that you're done following your father's orders." "I am." He helped her to her feet. "I meant what I said. I choose you, not because of magic or debts or bonds, because I want to." Seraphine felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not the bond, not the magic, something simpler. Hope. 3 days, she said. We go to Blood Moon. I heal their warrior. We come back. And then? And then we figure out what comes next. Iris appeared beside them, looking shell-shocked. You know this is crazy, right? Blood Moon could kill you both. They could, Seraphine agreed, but they won't. They need what I have, and I'm going to use that. Mora pushed through the crowd, her eyes bright. Smart girl. You just turned your biggest weakness into your greatest weapon. I learned from the best. Flattery won't save you in 3 days. Come, we need to prepare. Mora grabbed Seraphine's arm. If you're going to survive Blood Moon territory, you'll need to know how to control that power. Really control it, not just throw it around and hope. The next 3 days were brutal. Mora worked Seraphine until she collapsed, teaching her to channel the seed's power without burning herself out. Push and pull, give and take. The magic was vast, but it had limits, and crossing those limits meant death. Kale trained with the enforcers, preparing for every possible threat. He was different now, focused, deadly, completely in control. The bond had settled into something steady between them, no longer pulling or demanding, just there. On the second night, Seraphine found him standing outside her cabin, staring at the forest. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Thinking." "About?" "About how I'm going to keep you alive tomorrow." He turned to look at her. "About how I wasted months being my father's puppet when I should have been fighting for you." Seraphine stepped closer. "You're fighting now. It might not be enough. It's more than I had 4 days ago." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kael said quietly, "If something goes wrong tomorrow, if Blood Moon tries to take you, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Run. Don't wait for me. Don't try to save me. Just run. I'm not leaving you." "Seraphine." "No." She grabbed his hand. "We do this together or not at all." He stared at her, then pulled her into his arms. The embrace was fierce and desperate, and full of everything they hadn't said. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "For all of it. I know. I love you." The words hit her like a physical blow. She pulled back to look at him, searching his face. "You rejected me," she said. "I was a coward. You humiliated me. I was wrong. You let them treat me like nothing. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it if you let me." His eyes were fierce. "But that doesn't change the truth. I love you. I've loved you since we were kids. And I'm done pretending I don't." Seraphine felt tears burning her eyes. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Part of her wanted to push him away. Part of her just wanted this all to be over. "Ask me again after we survive tomorrow," she said finally. He smiled, sad and hopeful at the same time. "Deal." Dawn came too fast. They left at first light, just the two of them, heading into the forest toward Blood Moon territory. The journey would take most of the day. Seraphine carried a pack with medical supplies. Kael carried weapons. The forest grew darker as they walked, the trees closer together, the air heavier. They were leaving Silverpine territory, crossing into the neutral zone, and then beyond. Halfway there, Kael stopped suddenly. "We're being followed," he said quietly. Seraphine felt it too, the prickle on the back of her neck. "How many?" "3. Maybe 4. Staying back but keeping pace." "Blood Moon?" "I don't know." They kept walking, faster now. The presence behind them kept pace. When they reached the border of Blood Moon territory, marked by a line of white stones, a figure stepped out of the shadows ahead. The Blood Moon Alpha. "Right on time," he said. "Follow me." He led them deep into Blood Moon land, to a compound that made Silverpine's pack house look small. Warriors lined the paths, all watching with hostile eyes. They were led to a medical building. Inside, on a bed surrounded by healers, a man lay dying. He was young, maybe 25, and the poison was eating him alive. "This is Riker," the Alpha said. "My son. Save him, and we're done." Seraphine approached the bed. The poison was worse than Derek's had been. Older, deeper, more aggressive. This would take everything she had. She looked at Kael. He nodded. Seraphine placed her hands on Riker's chest and let the magic flow. It fought her immediately. The poison was ancient, intelligent, resisting every attempt to remove it. She pushed harder, felt the seed's power blazing through her veins. Riker screamed. "Stop!" one of the healers cried. "You're killing him!" "I'm saving him." Seraphine poured more power into the healing, feeling herself start to burn. This was too much, too fast. She was going to die. Kael's hands covered hers. The bond flared to life, and suddenly his strength was flowing into her, steadying the magic, giving her the control she needed. Together they ripped the poison free. Riker gasped, his eyes flying open. The poison dissolved into nothing. Seraphine collapsed into Kael's arms, completely drained. The Blood Moon Alpha stared at his son, who was breathing normally for the first time in days. The debt is paid, Seraphine managed. The Alpha looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. It is. You're free to go. They made it out of Blood Moon territory without incident, but halfway home the wolves that had been following them finally showed themselves. Gareth stepped out of the trees, flanked by enforcers. What are you doing here? Kael demanded, making sure the job was done. Gareth's eyes were cold. And making sure you come back. We made a deal. You made a deal. I didn't. Gareth looked at Seraphine. You're too dangerous to leave alive, girl. You've proven that. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer that seed to me, willingly, and then you're going to leave Silverpine territory and never come back. Kael moved in front of Seraphine. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. The enforcers shifted, surrounding them. Seraphine felt the magic stirring inside her, weak, but still there. She could fight, but she was exhausted, and Gareth had brought too many warriors. Last chance, Gareth said. Give me the seed or watch your mate die. Kael's hand found hers. The bond pulsed between them, and Seraphine made a choice. She let the magic explode. Green light erupted from Seraphine's body like a shockwave. It wasn't controlled, wasn't careful. It was raw power unleashed in desperation, and it hit Gareth's enforcers like a physical force. 3 of them flew backward, crashing into trees. 2 more dropped to their knees, gasping. Gareth himself staggered but stayed upright, his eyes blazing gold as he shifted halfway into his wolf form. You dare! Seraphine didn't let him finish. She thrust her hands forward, and vines erupted from the forest floor, thick as a man's arm, wrapping around the enforcer's legs. The forest itself was responding to her, bending to her will in ways that should have been impossible. Run, she shouted at Kael. Not without you. An enforcer broke free from the vines and lunged. Kael intercepted him mid-leap, shifting into his massive black wolf form. They hit the ground in a tangle of fur and teeth and claws. Seraphine felt the magic draining her, burning through her reserves faster than she could replenish them. She'd already used most of her power healing Riker. This was the dregs, and it was killing her. But she couldn't stop. More enforcers were closing in. Gareth was barking orders, his alpha voice cutting through the chaos. The vines wouldn't hold them for long. Enough, Gareth roared. The command hit like the hammer. Every wolf in the clearing, including Kael, froze. Alpha command absolute and undeniable. Except Seraphine wasn't a wolf. Not entirely. She pushed harder, and the forest responded. Trees bent toward the clearing, their branches reaching like grasping fingers. The ground itself began to shake. You're going to kill yourself, Gareth snarled. Stop this madness. No. Seraphine's voice didn't sound like her own anymore. It was layered, ancient, resonant. You don't get to threaten me anymore. You don't get to take what's mine. The seed isn't yours. Your mother stole it. My mother protected it. Protected me. And I'm done letting men like you decide my worth. The shaking intensified. Somewhere in the distance, a tree cracked and fell. Then a new voice cut through the chaos, female, commanding, furious. Stand down, Gareth! Everyone turned. A woman strode into the clearing, flanked by a dozen warriors wearing unfamiliar colors, deep purple and silver. She was tall and regal, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that glowed the same green as Seraphine's magic. Gareth's face went white. Alara. Hello, brother, the woman said coldly. It's been 20 years. You look old. Seraphine's magic faltered. Brother? The woman, Alara, turned her attention to Seraphine, and her expression softened. You can stop now, child. You're safe. Who are you? Your aunt, your mother's sister. Alara's smile was sad, and the alpha of the Silvershade pack. The forest went silent. Seraphine felt her knees buckle. Kael broke free from the alpha command and caught her before she hit the ground. That's impossible, Gareth said, but he sounded uncertain. Silvershade fell. The pack was destroyed. You destroyed it, Alara corrected. 20 years ago, when you decided our lands were too valuable and our magic too threatening. You led the attack yourself, Gareth. Killed half our pack, scattered the rest. Her eyes were cold as ice. My sister escaped with the heart tree's seed. She knew what you'd do if you found her. So she hid, and she hid her daughter. Seraphine's mind was reeling. Her mother had never mentioned a sister, never mentioned being part of a pack that had been slaughtered. "You have no proof," Gareth said. "Don't I?" Alara gestured to her warriors. One of them stepped forward, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. When he unwrapped it, Seraphine saw a silver crown, delicate branches intertwined, studded with green stones that pulsed with the same light as her magic. "The silver shade crown," Alara said, "passed down through the Alpha line for 15 generations. My sister was supposed to wear it after me. But you killed that future when you burned our home." The enforcers were backing away now, their confidence shaken. Even Gareth looked uncertain. "Why come forward now?" he demanded. "If you've been alive all this time, because you threatened my niece." Alara's voice was steel. "The last of my bloodline, the heir to Silvershade power. Did you really think I wouldn't be watching, waiting?" She crossed to where Seraphine knelt in Kael's arms and gently tilted her chin up. "You have her eyes," Alara said softly. "Your mother's courage too, from what I've seen. She'd be proud." "She never told me," Seraphine whispered, "about you, about any of this." "She was protecting you. The less you knew, the safer you were." Alara's expression hardened as she turned back to Gareth. "But that time is over. Seraphine is no longer a lone healer without protection. She is Silvershade. And if you threaten her again, you threaten my entire pack." "Your pack is nothing," Gareth spat. "A handful of survivors hiding in the shadows. 200 strong and growing," Alara interrupted. "We've spent 20 years rebuilding in secret, gathering our scattered members, training, preparing for the day we could reclaim what you took from us." She smiled. "That day is today." The clearing erupted into shouting. Gareth's enforcers were arguing amongst themselves. Some looked ready to fight. Others looked like they wanted to run. Kael helped Seraphine to her feet. "Can you walk?" "I think so." Her legs felt like water, but she forced them to hold. "We need to get out of here before this turns into a bloodbath." "Too late for that," Alara said. She'd moved closer, her warriors forming a protective circle around Seraphine. "Gareth won't let this go. He knows what it means if Silvershade rises again. It means his claim to these territories is illegitimate. It means everything he's built is on stolen land." "I don't care about land," Seraphine said. "I just want to be left alone." "That's not an option anymore, child. The moment you revealed your power, you became a symbol, the lost Silvershade heir, alive and strong." Alara's eyes were kind but unyielding. "People will rally to you whether you want them to or not. Then they'll be disappointed. I'm not a leader." "Neither was your mother," she learned. Alara glanced at Kael, who was still supporting Seraphine. His wolf form faded back to human. "And it seems you've already found an ally." "He's Gareth's son," Seraphine said. "I know. I've been watching." Alara studied Kael with sharp eyes. "You rejected her. Publicly. Cruelly." Kael didn't flinch. "I did. It's the biggest mistake I've ever made. And now? Now I stand with her, against my father if necessary, against anyone." Alara looked between them, then nodded slowly. "The bond between you is unusual. Not mate bond, not quite life debt. Something else." "Does it matter?" Kael asked. "It might. Bonds can be exploited, used against you." She turned back to Gareth, who was conferring with his council members, which is exactly what he'll try to do. As if on cue, Gareth raised his voice. "Seraphine Hale, you are hereby banished from Silverpine territory. If you return, you will be executed as a traitor." "She's not Silverpine," Alara said. "She never was. She's Silvershade. She belongs with her own pack." "Then take her and go. This territory is mine." "For now," Alara's smile was sharp. "We'll see how long that lasts when the other packs learn what you did 20 years ago. Murder, theft, genocide. The Council of Alphas won't look kindly on that." Gareth's face darkened. "You have no proof of any of that." "I have survivors, witnesses, and I have her." Alara gestured to Seraphine. "Living proof that Silvershade still exists, that your crimes didn't destroy us." The two Alphas stared at each other, the tension crackling like lightning. Then Marcus, Kael's former enforcer, stepped forward. "What about him?" He pointed at Kael. "He's been helping her, protecting her. That's treason." Kael turned to face his father. The clearing had gone deathly quiet. "It's not treason to protect someone who saved my life," Kael said. "You're my heir. Gareth said. You belong to Silverpine, to me. I belong to myself. Kale's voice was steady. And I choose to stand with Seraphine. If you leave with her, you're no longer my son, no longer heir. You'll have nothing. Then I'll have nothing. Seraphine grabbed his arm. Kale, wait. Think about this. I have. He looked down at her and his eyes were clear, certain. I've thought about nothing else for days. You were right when you said I was my father's puppet, but I'm done with that. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing the person I want to be. You'll regret this, Gareth snarled. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. Gareth looked like he wanted to rip his son apart, but Alara's warriors had shifted into defensive positions, and even Gareth wasn't stupid enough to start a fight he might lose. Go, Gareth said finally. Both of you. But know this, you are no longer welcome in Silverpine. Cross our borders again, and I will kill you. Both of you. Understood, Kael said. Alara nodded to her warriors. We're leaving. Anyone who tries to stop us will answer to me. They began to retreat into the forest. Seraphine walked between Kael and her aunt, her body shaking with exhaustion and shock, and a dozen other emotions she couldn't name. Behind them, Gareth's voice rang out one last time. This isn't over, Alara. No, Alara called back. It's just beginning. They walked for hours, deep into territory Seraphine had never seen. The forest here was older, wilder, the trees massive and gnarled with age. Finally, as the sun began to set, they emerged into a clearing. Seraphine stopped and stared. Before her was a village, no, a town, built into and around the ancient trees. Wooden structures connected by rope bridges, lights glowing in windows, the sound of voices and laughter drifting on the evening breeze. At the center stood a tree so massive it made the others look like saplings. Its trunk was easily 50 feet across, and its branches stretched so high they seemed to touch the sky. Welcome to New Silvershade, Alara said quietly. Your birthright. Seraphine felt tears burning her eyes. This is real, you're all real. Very real, and very happy to have you home. Wolves were emerging from the buildings now, gathering in the clearing to stare at the newcomers. Seraphine saw curiosity in their faces, hope, and in some, suspicion. A young woman pushed to the front of the crowd, barely 20, with wild curly hair and fierce green eyes. Is it true? Is she really? This is Seraphine, Alara announced, daughter of Lyra, last of the royal bloodline, your princess. Princess. The word felt absurd. Seraphine wanted to laugh, to protest, to run, but then the young woman dropped to one knee, and then another wolf did, and another. Within seconds, the entire gathered pack was kneeling. Stop, Seraphine said. Please, you don't have to. Yes, we do, the young woman said. She looked up, and there were tears streaming down her face. We've waited 20 years for this. For proof that Silvershade survived, that we're more than just refugees and survivors. She smiled. You're our future. I don't know how to be anyone's future. Then you'll learn. Alara placed a hand on her shoulder, just like your mother did. A man stepped forward from the crowd, older, with scars crossing his face and neck. The girl needs rest and food. She looks ready to collapse. Thank you, Torin, Alara said. Take her to the healing house. Make sure she's comfortable. What about him? Torin gestured to Kael, who stood slightly apart, looking overwhelmed. He stays close to Seraphine. The bond, he's Gareth's son, someone in the crowd said. We can't trust him. I trust Seraphine's judgment, Alara said firmly, and she trusts him. That's enough for now. Torin didn't look happy, but he nodded. This way. The healing house was built into the roots of the great tree, its rooms carved from the living wood. Torin led them to a chamber with a large bed, a fireplace, and windows that looked out over the village. Someone will bring food, he said. Then, to Kael, you hurt her, and what Gareth did will look like mercy. Understood, Kael said. When they were finally alone, Seraphine collapsed onto the bed. Every muscle in her body ached. The magic had burned through her like wildfire, leaving her hollow and trembling. Kael sat beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Seraphine laughed weakly. My whole life just turned upside down. Again. I have an aunt, a pack, a crown apparently, And everyone here thinks I'm some kind of savior. Are you? I'm a healer who can barely control her own power. I'm not anyone's savior. You saved me. You saved Derek. You saved Riker. Kale's voice was soft. You've been saving people since the moment I met you. Maybe it's time you accepted that's who you are. And what are you? She asked. You just gave up everything for me. Your title, your pack, your father. I gave up nothing important. Everything that matters is right here. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't just the bond talking, or guilt, or some misguided sense of duty. But she was too tired to analyze it. A knock at the door interrupted them. The young woman from earlier entered, carrying a tray loaded with food and a steaming pot of tea. I'm Lissa, she said shyly. Your cousin. Well, second cousin. My grandmother was your mother's aunt. I have a cousin, Seraphine said wonderingly. You have a lot of cousins. The whole pack is related somehow. Lissa set the tray down and poured tea into 2 cups. We heard what happened at Silverpine. How you stood up to Gareth. More like I barely survived him. You're here. You're alive. That's more than most people who cross Gareth can say. Lissa's expression darkened. He killed my father. During the attack 20 years ago. I was just a baby. Don't remember him at all. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just make sure he pays for it eventually. Lissa smiled. We've been waiting a long time for justice. Maybe you're the one who'll finally give it to us. After she left, Seraphine and Kael ate in silence. The food was simple. Roasted meat, bread, vegetables. But it was the best thing Seraphine had tasted in days. When they finished, Kael stood. I should go. Let you rest. Stay. The word was out before Seraphine could stop it. He looked at her, uncertain. Are you sure? I don't want to be alone right now. He settled back onto the bed, keeping a careful distance. They lay there in the firelight, not touching, just existing in the same space. Kael? Yeah? When you said you loved me, earlier, did you mean it? Silence stretched between them. Then, yes. Why? Because you're brave and stubborn, and you see people, really see them, in a way no one else does. He turned to look at her. Because you saved my life when you should have let me die. Because you stood up to my father when everyone else was too afraid. Because being near you makes me want to be better than I am. Seraphine's throat was tight. I don't know if I can forgive you for the rejection, for everything. I know. And I don't know what this is between us. If it's real or just the bond or... We'll figure it out, Kael said. We have time. Do we? Seraphine thought about Gareth's threat, about the look in his eyes when Kael had chosen to leave. He's not going to let this go. Your father, he's going to come after us. Let him try. You say that like you're not terrified. Kael was quiet for a moment. I am terrified, but not of him. I'm terrified of losing you again. Everything else I can handle. Seraphine reached out and took his hand. His fingers were warm, calloused from training, strong. Don't make promises you can't keep, she said. I won't. They fell asleep like that, hands linked, the bond humming softly between them. Seraphine woke to shouting. She bolted upright, her heart racing. Beside her, Kael was already on his feet, moving toward the window. What's happening? I don't know. He pushed the window open, and the sound of chaos flooded in. Wolves running, voices raised in alarm. Something's wrong! They rushed outside to find the village in an uproar. Warriors were gathering weapons. Healers were preparing supplies. And at the center of it all stood Alara, her face grim. What's going on? Seraphine demanded. Alara turned. Scouts just reported back. Gareth has called for a council of alphas. He's accusing us of harboring fugitives and making threats of war. The other packs are gathering to hear his case. When? 3 days. At the neutral grounds. Alara's eyes were hard. He's going to try to turn the other alphas against us. Paint Silvershade as a threat. Justify what he did 20 years ago and what he wants to do now. What does he want to do now? Destroy us. Again. Alara crossed to Seraphine. But he's made a mistake. By calling the council, he's given us a platform. A chance to tell our side, to expose what he did. He'll just deny it. Probably. But we have something he doesn't expect. Ilara smiled. We have you. Seraphine's stomach dropped. Me, living proof of Silver Shade's survival, a royal heir with the Heart Tree's power. When the other alphas see what you can do, they'll understand why Gareth is so desperate to destroy you. I can't control the power. Not well. I barely survived the last time I used it. Then we have 3 days to teach you. Alara's hand gripped her shoulder. I know this is overwhelming. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But whether you like it or not, you're the future of this pack. And if we're going to survive what's coming, we need you strong. No pressure, Seraphine muttered. The next 3 days were hell. Ilara worked her harder than Mora ever had. Up at dawn, training until midnight, learning to channel the seed's power without burning herself out. Push and pull. Grow and destroy. Life and death. The magic fought her constantly. It was wild, ancient, full of rage at being bound for so long. Every time she tried to control it, it bucked against her will like a wild horse. You're trying to dominate it, Ilara said on the second day, after Seraphine had collapsed for the 5th time. That won't work. You have to partner with it. Respect it. It's trying to kill me. It's trying to be free. There's a difference. Ilara helped her to her feet. The seed was bound inside you before you were born, locked away, suppressed. Now it's awake, and it doesn't trust you. You have to earn that trust. How? By listening, by asking instead of demanding, by understanding that this power isn't yours to command, it's yours to steward. Seraphine wanted to scream. She was exhausted, her body ached, and every lesson seemed designed to make her feel more inadequate, but she kept trying. On the 3rd morning, something shifted. She was practicing in a clearing, trying to make a single flower bloom. She'd been at it for an hour with no results. The magic kept slipping through her fingers like water. Focus, Ilara said. Feel the seed. Ask it to help you. Seraphine closed her eyes and reached inward, past her wolf, past her fear, to the place where the seed lived, a pulse of green light next to her heart. Please, she thought, I need your help. We need your help. The seed responded, not with resistance this time, but with curiosity, warmth, recognition. Seraphine opened her eyes and looked at the bare patch of dirt in front of her. She didn't command. She asked, a flower bloomed, then another. Within seconds, the entire clearing was carpeted in wildflowers, blue and white and gold, swaying in a breeze that hadn't been there moments before. There, Ilara said softly. Now you understand. That night, Kyle found her sitting by the great tree, staring up at its branches. You okay? He asked. I'm scared. She didn't look at him. Tomorrow we go to the council, and I have no idea what's going to happen. You'll be amazing. You don't know that. I know you. He sat beside her. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. I know you survived things that should have broken you, and I know that whatever happens tomorrow, you'll face it head on. Even if we lose, even if Gareth convinces the other alphas to destroy Silvershade, even then, Kyle took her hand. Because you're not fighting for power, or territory, or revenge. You're fighting because it's right, and that matters. Seraphine leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you get so wise? I've had a good teacher. They sat there until the moon rose high, not talking, just being. The neutral grounds were exactly that, a massive clearing in the deepest part of the forest, marked by ancient standing stones. It was here that the Council of Alphas met to settle disputes and make decisions that affected all packs. When Seraphine arrived with Ilara and 20 Silvershade warriors, 5 other alphas were already there. Gareth stood with his council, looking confident and controlled. The Blood Moon Alpha was present too, his expression unreadable. The other alphas studied Seraphine with open curiosity. She recognized their names from stories, Alpha Vera of Ironwood, Alpha Marcus of Stoneridge, Alpha Helena of Riversong. A 6th alpha stepped forward, an ancient man who looked like he might be 100 years old. This was Elder Theron, the council's mediator. We are gathered, Theron said, his voice surprisingly strong, to hear Alpha Gareth's accusations against the Silvershade pack. Gareth, state your case. Gareth stepped forward. 20 years ago, the Silvershade pack was destroyed for crimes against pack law. They practiced forbidden magic, threatened neighboring territories, and refused to submit to council authority. The destruction of their pack was sanctioned by this very council. Murmurs ran through the gathered wolves. Now, Gareth continued, the remnants of Silvershade have resurfaced, led by Alara Silvershade, who escaped justice 2 decades ago. They've been hiding in our territories, gathering strength, preparing for war. And they've recruited my own son as a traitor. He pointed at Kyle, who stood beside Seraphine. Furthermore, Gareth said, they possess forbidden magic. Life magic from the heart tree, magic that was supposed to have been destroyed. They've planted it in this girl. He gestured at Seraphine. She is a weapon, a threat to every pack here. The other alphas looked uncomfortable. Several were whispering to their advisors. Alara Silvershade, Theron said. What is your response? Alara stepped forward, regal and fierce. Gareth speaks truth twisted into lies. Yes, Silvershade possessed life magic, but we never threatened anyone. We never practiced forbidden arts. We simply existed, and that was enough to make Gareth greedy. That's a lie, Gareth started. Is it? Alara's voice cut through his. Tell them about the night you attacked. Tell them how you slaughtered children in their beds. How you burned our homes while families slept inside. How you hunted down every survivor you could find and killed them in the forest like animals. Gareth's face went red. We had council approval. You had lies. You told this council we were planning to attack Silverpine territory. You fabricated evidence. You painted us as monsters so you could justify genocide. Alara turned to the other alphas. And when it was done, when our pack was destroyed, he claimed our lands, extended Silverpine's borders by 1/3, became one of the most powerful alphas in the region, all built on the bones of innocence. Where's your proof? Alpha Vera demanded. I have survivors. I have witnesses. I have 20 years of hiding and rebuilding because we were too afraid to come forward. Alara's eyes blazed. And I have her. She gestured to Seraphine. My niece, daughter of the last Silvershade heir, living proof that we survived, that we deserve justice. All eyes turned to Seraphine. She felt her throat go dry. Hundreds of wolves staring at her, judging her, waiting to see if she was worth the war that might be coming. Step forward, child, Theron said gently. Seraphine walked into the center of the circle. The standing stones loomed around her like giants. You carry the heart tree's seed, Theron said. This is forbidden magic. I didn't choose it, Seraphine said. My mother bound it to me before I was born, to protect it, to protect me. Show us, Alpha Helena said. Show us this power you possess. Seraphine looked at Alara, who nodded. She closed her eyes and reached for the seed. It responded immediately now, eager, almost playful. She directed it outward, into the ground beneath her feet. The earth trembled. Then, in the space between the standing stones, life erupted. Grass grew thick and green. Flowers bloomed in waves of color. Saplings shot up, growing years in seconds, their branches spreading overhead. Moss covered the ancient stones, soft and glowing with faint green light. Within minutes, the neutral grounds had transformed from a barren clearing into a living garden. The assembled wolves stood in stunned silence. This is what you call forbidden? Alara asked. The power to heal, to grow, to bring life? This is what justified slaughtering my pack? It's too much power, Gareth said. No one person should wield it. It corrupts, destroys. The only thing I see being destroyed, said the Blood Moon Alpha, speaking for the first time, is your argument, Gareth. Gareth whirled on him. You're defending them after they attacked your son? They saved my son. There's a difference. The Blood Moon Alpha looked at Seraphine. I've seen what she can do. She's not a weapon. She's a healer, the strongest I've ever encountered. Then she's an even greater threat. Enough! Theron's voice silenced everyone. The old Alpha studied Seraphine for a long moment. Child, what do you want? The question caught her off guard. What? You possess great power. You have a pack that will follow you. You could seek revenge against those who wronged your family. You could claim Gareth's territory, his title, everything he took from you. So I ask again, what do you want? Seraphine looked at the garden she'd created, at the wolves watching her, at Alara, whose eyes were full of hope, at Kyle, who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. I want to heal, she said simply. That's all I've ever wanted, to help people, to make things better. Not through war or revenge, but through actual healing. Even after everything Gareth has done, especially after. Because if I become like him, if I let anger and hate drive me, then he wins. He gets to say I was the threat all along. She met Theron's eyes. I'm not interested in destroying Silverpine. I'm interested in rebuilding Silvershade, in creating something better than what we had before. Pretty words, Gareth sneered. But words don't change what you are. A threat, an abomination, a queen. Everyone turned. A figure emerged from the forest. Another woman, even older than Theron, with hair like snow and eyes that glowed pure silver. Every alpha in the clearing dropped to one knee. High Elder Karina, Theron breathed. The woman, Karina, walked slowly into the circle. She moved with the deliberate grace of someone ancient and powerful beyond measure. I remember Silvershade, she said, her voice soft but carrying. I remember when life magic flowed freely, when the heart tree grew in the sacred grove, when balance existed between the packs. She turned to Gareth, and I remember when you destroyed it. I opposed the decision then. I oppose your lies now. With respect, High Elder, Gareth started. You will be silent. The command in her voice was absolute. Gareth's mouth snapped shut. Karina approached Seraphine. Up close, her eyes weren't just silver. They contained entire galaxies swirling with ancient knowledge. Let me see, she said, placing a hand over Seraphine's heart. Power flowed between them, Karina's silver meeting Seraphine's green. The seed responded, blooming inside her chest, showing Karina everything, all of its history, all of its potential. When Karina pulled back, she was smiling. The seed is chosen well, she said. This one carries not just power, but wisdom, compassion, the very qualities we need. Need for what? Seraphine asked. To restore balance. The packs have grown too focused on strength, on dominance, on conquest. We've forgotten that true power lies in preservation, in healing. Karina turned to address all the alphas. I declare Silvershade Pack restored. Alara Silvershade is recognized as alpha, and Seraphine Silvershade is named heir and keeper of the Heart Tree's legacy. The gathered wolves erupted into chaos. Some howled approval. Others shouted protests. Gareth looked like he'd swallowed poison. You can't. I can. And I have. Karina's eyes were steel. Furthermore, all lands taken from Silvershade during the attack 20 years ago are to be returned. Immediately. That's a third of my territory. That's justice. Karina turned away from him dismissively. The council will reconvene in 1 month to discuss reparations. Until then, all packs will respect Silvershade's sovereignty. Any attack on them will be considered an attack on this council's authority. She left as silently as she'd come, disappearing into the forest. In the stunned silence that followed, Alara approached the other alphas. We don't seek war, she said. We seek only what was stolen from us. Our lands, our dignity, our future. One by one, the other alphas nodded their acceptance. Even the Blood Moon Alpha inclined his head in respect. Only Gareth remained rigid, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. This isn't over, he said quietly, his eyes fixed on Seraphine. Yes, she said. It is. But as they left the neutral grounds, Seraphine felt a chill run down her spine. Because Gareth's parting look hadn't been one of defeat. It had been one of calculation, and men like him didn't lose gracefully. They made it halfway back to Silvershade territory before the attack came. It happened at dusk, in a narrow pass between two ridges where the trees grew thick and close. One moment, the forest was quiet. The next, wolves poured from the shadows, at least 30 of them, all bearing Silverpine colors. Ambush! Torrin shouted, shifting mid-leap. Chaos erupted. The Silvershade warriors formed a protective circle around Seraphine and Alara, but they were outnumbered. Claws met flesh. Teeth found throats. The air filled with snarls and screams. Seraphine saw Marcus leading the attack, his eyes wild and focused entirely on her. This ends now, he roared, charging straight through the defensive line. Kale intercepted him, the two wolves colliding with bone-jarring force. They rolled across the ground in a tangle of fur and fury, each trying for the killing blow. Kael! Seraphine started toward them, but Alara grabbed her arm. Don't! You'll just make yourself a target. He needs help. He needs you alive. An enemy wolf broke through the line, jaws open wide, heading straight for Seraphine. She threw up her hands instinctively, and green light exploded outward. The wolf yelped and flew backwards, slamming into a tree. But more were coming. Too many. Seraphine felt panic rising. She could fight, could use the seed's power, but Mora's warning echoed in her mind. Use too much and it'll kill you. She'd already pushed herself hard at the council meeting. How much more could she take? A wolf's jaws closed around her ankle. Pain lanced up her leg. She screamed and kicked, catching the wolf in the snout. It released her, but blood was already soaking through her pants. Seraphine! Kael's voice, desperate and far away. She looked up to see him pinned beneath Marcus, teeth at his throat. Marcus was bigger, stronger, and fighting with the single-minded fury of someone who'd been given permission to kill. Seraphine didn't think. She just reacted. She grabbed the seed's power and poured it into the ground beneath Marcus. Vines erupted from the earth, thick as cables, wrapping around his legs and torso. He yelped in surprise as they yanked him off Kael and slammed him into the ground. More vines, more power. Seraphine felt it burning through her, hotter than before, demanding everything she had. The vines spread across the entire battlefield. They didn't just grab the Silverpine wolves. They held them, immobilized them, lifted them into the air like puppets on strings. Within seconds, every enemy wolf was trapped. The Silvershade warriors stared in shock. Seraphine swayed on her feet, blood still dripping from her ankle, the power still blazing through her veins. She was burning up from the inside. Too much, way too much. Yield, she said to Marcus, her voice echoing with that strange ancient resonance, or I'll crush every bone in your body. Marcus struggled against the vines, but they held firm. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw fear there. You can't hold this forever, he gasped. I can hold it long enough. Elara stepped forward, her alpha presence rolling over the trapped wolves like a wave. You came onto neutral territory with intent to kill. That's a violation of council law. I could execute all of you right now, and no one would question it. Do it then, Marcus snarled. No! Seraphine's voice cut through the tension. Let them go. Everyone turned to stare at her. What? Elara demanded. Let them go. Back to Silverpine. Tell Gareth what happened here. Seraphine looked at Marcus, still suspended in the air by vines. Tell him that I could have killed you all, but I chose mercy. Tell him that's the difference between him and me. Marcus spat blood. He'll just send more, probably. But every wolf he sends, every attack he orders, proves to the other packs that he's the threat. Not me, not Silvershade. She tightened the vines just slightly, making Marcus gasp. So go ahead. Keep attacking. Keep proving I'm right about you. She released the vines all at once. The Silverpine wolves crashed to the ground in a heap, groaning and cursing. Run, Seraphine said, before I change my mind. They ran. As soon as they were out of sight, Seraphine's legs gave out. Kael caught her before she hit the ground, shifting back to human form. That was incredibly stupid, he said, but his voice was shaking. Probably. Seraphine's vision was starting to blur. The burn in her veins had turned to ice. Did it work? You're alive. I'd call that a win. Elara knelt beside them, her expression grim as she examined Seraphine's ankle. The bite is deep. We need to get you back to the healing house. I'm fine. You're bleeding and half-conscious. You're not fine. Elara looked at Torin. Carry her, quickly. The journey back was a blur of pain and exhaustion. Seraphine drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of movement, voices, the smell of herbs and smoke. When she finally woke, she was in the healing house, her ankle wrapped in bandages and her body covered in furs. Early morning light streamed through the windows. Kael was asleep in a chair beside her bed, his head tilted at an angle that would give him a killer neckache. He'd shifted back to human and someone had given him clothes, but he still looked like hell. Bruises on his face, claw marks on his arms, dried blood in his hair. Seraphine tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle screamed in protest. Don't move! She turned to find Lysa entering the room with a tray of food and medicine. Her cousin looked worried. How long was I out? Seraphine asked. 2 days. 2? Seraphine tried to get up again, and Lysa pushed her firmly back down. You nearly killed yourself. Again. The healers say you burned through so much power, it's a miracle you're alive. Lissa set the tray down and started checking Seraphine's bandages. Your aunt is furious. Half the pack thinks you're reckless. The other half thinks you're a hero. What do you think? Lissa smiled slightly. I think you're both. Drink this. She handed Seraphine a cup filled with something that smelled like dirt and tasted worse. Seraphine forced it down anyway. What happened after the ambush? She asked. Word spread fast about how you held 30 wolves without killing them, about how you showed mercy when you could have shown vengeance. Lissa's eyes were bright. The other packs are talking about it. Some are impressed. Some are calling you weak. And Gareth? Silent. Which is somehow worse than if he were raging. Lissa glanced at KL. He hasn't left your side since we got back. Elara had to order him to eat. Seraphine looked at him sleeping in the chair, his hand resting on the edge of her bed like he'd fallen asleep holding hers. Something warm unfurled in her chest. Lissa, can I ask you something? Sure. How do you know if what you're feeling is real, not just the bond or magic or, I don't know, obligation? Lissa sat on the edge of the bed, her expression thoughtful. My grandmother used to say that real love feels like coming home, like you can finally stop running. She smiled. Does he feel like home? Seraphine didn't answer. She didn't know how. Over the next week, Silvershade transformed. Word of the council's decision had spread. Wolves who'd been hiding for 20 years began emerging from the shadows, returning to their pack. Every day brought new arrivals, families, warriors, healers, all coming home. The village swelled from 200 to nearly 400. New structures were built. Old territories were reclaimed. And at the center of it all was the great tree, growing stronger every day as Seraphine's power fed into its roots. She trained with Elara daily, learning not just to control the seed's power, but to understand it. The magic wasn't just life. It was balance, growth, and decay. Beginning and ending. The cycle that kept the world turning. You can't just create, Elara explained during one session. You have to understand what creation costs. Every time you grow something, you're pulling energy from somewhere else. The soil, the air, yourself. If you don't learn to balance it, you'll burn out. Seraphine practiced pulling life from dead things and channeling it into living ones, taking energy from the earth and returning it when she was done. Give and take. The eternal dance. It was exhausting work, but she was getting stronger, more controlled. The seed no longer fought her. It worked with her, responding to her will like a partner in a dance she was finally learning the steps to. But strength attracted attention. On the 8th day after the council meeting, a messenger arrived from Ironwood Pack. Alpha Vera wanted to meet with Seraphine personally, to discuss an alliance. This is a trap, Torin said flatly when Elara called a council meeting. Or an opportunity, Elara countered. Ironwood is powerful. An alliance with them would give us protection. Or it would give Gareth another target. He could claim we're building an army, planning to attack. He's going to claim that anyway. Elara looked at Seraphine. What do you think? All eyes turned to her. Seraphine still wasn't used to being consulted on pack decisions, but Elara insisted. You're the heir. You need to learn. I think we should go, Seraphine said. But carefully. Small group. No show of force. Just conversation. Agreed, Elara said. I'll take Torin, Lissa, and Seraphine. Kael, you'll stay here and coordinate the new arrivals. Kael looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded. The bond had settled enough that he could handle short separations now, though Seraphine could still feel his discomfort through the connection. They left the next morning. Ironwood territory was 3 days' travel north through dense forest and across 2 rivers. Alpha Vera met them at her pack's border with a full honor guard, 20 warriors in formation, all in polished armor. Vera herself was impressive, tall and broad-shouldered, with iron-gray hair and eyes like chips of stone. She looked like she could break Seraphine in half without trying. Elara Silvershade, Vera said, her voice carrying. It's been a long time. 20 years. You've aged well, for a dead woman. Elara smiled tightly. I had good motivation to stay alive. Vera's eyes shifted to Seraphine. So this is the heir. She doesn't look like much. Looks can be deceiving, Seraphine said before Elara could respond. Vera's eyebrows rose. Backbone. Good. You'll need it. She gestured toward her pack house. Come, let's talk somewhere more comfortable. The ironwood pack house was built from stone and timber, massive and imposing. Inside it was surprisingly warm, with fires burning in multiple hearths and tapestries covering the walls. Vera led them to a private study and dismissed her guards. I'll be direct, she said, pouring drinks for everyone. Gareth approached me 3 days ago, offered me a portion of Silvershade's returned territories if I'd support him in claiming you're a threat to pack stability. Seraphine's blood went cold. What did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it. Vera smiled at Seraphine's expression. Relax, I'm not going to take his offer, but I needed to know what you'd do if I told you I was considering it. This is a test? Alara demanded. Everything is a test. Vera settled into a chair. Gareth is desperate. He's lost territory, lost face, and his own son chose you over him. Desperate men make mistakes, but they also make dangerous enemies. She looked at Seraphine. He's not going to stop. Ambushes, political maneuvering, bribes, threats. He'll use every tool he has to destroy you. Can you handle that? I don't have a choice, Seraphine said. There's always a choice. You could run, take your power and disappear. Live quietly somewhere far from here. And abandon my pack, my aunt, everyone who's counting on me? Seraphine shook her head. No, I'm done running. Even if it means war? I don't want war. I want peace. But if Gareth forces the issue, Seraphine met Vera's eyes steadily. Then I'll do what I have to do. Vera studied her for a long moment. Then she laughed, a deep, genuine sound. I like you, girl. You've got steel in your spine. She raised her glass. Ironwood stands with Silvershade. If Gareth wants a war, he'll have to go through both of us. Alara looked stunned. Just like that? Just like that. I've known Gareth for 30 years. He's a bully and a liar. The only reason I didn't oppose him 20 years ago was because I believed his evidence. Now I know better. Vera's expression hardened. Besides, the Council of Alphas recognizing Silvershade changes everything. If I support you, I'm supporting Council law. If I support Gareth, I'm supporting a rogue alpha who defied the High Elder. Easy choice. They stayed at Ironwood for 2 more days, working out the details of the alliance. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, shared resources. It was boring diplomatic work, but it was important. On the second night, Vera pulled Seraphine aside after dinner. Walk with me, she said. They walked through the Ironwood village, past houses where lights glowed warm in windows and children played in the streets. It looked peaceful, normal. You're afraid, Vera said bluntly. Seraphine didn't bother denying it. Wouldn't you be? Absolutely. Vera's smart. It keeps you alive. Vera stopped at an overlook that showed the entire valley spread out below them. But don't let it paralyze you. You have power most wolves can only dream of. Use it. I'm trying, but every time I do, I risk burning out, killing myself. Then get better at controlling it. Practice until it's second nature. Train until you can use your power in your sleep. Vera looked at her. You think I became alpha of Ironwood by being careful? By playing it safe? I took risks. I made enemies. I fought battles I wasn't sure I could win. And here I am. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's just necessary. Vera's expression softened slightly. Your mother would be proud of you, you know. Lyra was one of the kindest people I ever met, but she was also fierce when she needed to be. You have that same fire in you. Don't waste it by being too afraid to burn. They returned to Silvershade 3 days later to find the village buzzing with news. What happened? Alara demanded. Kale met them at the edge of the village, his expression grim. Gareth made his move. He's called for a formal challenge. A challenge to what? To your right to rule Silvershade. He claims that since you weren't present during the Council's decision 20 years ago, you have no legitimate claim to alpha status. He's demanding a trial by combat to settle it. Alara went very still. He challenged me directly? No. Kale looked at Seraphine. He challenged her. The world tilted. That's not possible, Seraphine said. I'm not even alpha. I'm just the heir. According to pack law, an heir can be challenged if they're being positioned to take power, Kyle explained. And since you've been acting as Alara's representative, meeting with other alphas, making decisions, Gareth's arguing that you're effectively already leading the pack. That's insane. That's politics. Kyle's jaw was tight. He knows you can't fight him. You're a healer, not a warrior. This is just another way to get rid of you. Then I'll refuse the challenge. You can't. Pack law requires an answer within 3 days. If you refuse or don't show, Silver Shade's claim to the territories is voided. Everything goes back to Gareth. Seraphine felt trapped. Again. Every time she thought she'd found solid ground, it shifted beneath her feet. There has to be another way, Lissa said. There is. Everyone turned to look at Torin. The scarred warrior stepped forward. Pack law allows for a champion. Seraphine doesn't have to fight Gareth herself. She can choose someone to fight in her place. I'll do it, Kyle said immediately. No. Alara's voice was firm. You're his son. The pack would see it as patricide, no matter who wins. It would tear Silverpine apart. Then I'll fight, Torin said. Gareth would crush you? No offense, but he's one of the strongest alphas in the region. Alara looked frustrated. We need someone who can actually win. What about me? Everyone turned to stare at Seraphine. What? Alara demanded. I'll fight him, not with claws and teeth, with magic. Seraphine's mind was racing. Pack law says it's trial by combat, right? It doesn't specify what kind of combat. You can't control your power well enough. Then I'll learn. I have 3 days. Seraphine felt the seed stirring inside her, responding to her determination. He wants to make this about strength versus weakness? Fine. Let's show him what real strength looks like. Alara looked torn between pride and terror. Seraphine, if you lose, I won't lose. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Seraphine stood straighter, feeling the seed's power flowing through her like a current. Because I'm not fighting for territory or pride or revenge. I'm fighting for my pack, for my family, for everyone who's counting on me. That's a strength Gareth will never understand. The next 3 days were a blur of training. Alara pushed her harder than ever, teaching her not just to create, but to destroy. How to drain life instead of giving it. How to turn her healing magic into a weapon. Life magic isn't gentle, Alara explained as Seraphine practiced withering a plant with a touch. It's the cycle. Birth and death. You can't have one without the other. Seraphine practiced until her hand shook. She learned to pull the moisture from the air and freeze it into ice. To accelerate decay until wood rotted in seconds. To grow thorns sharp enough to pierce armor. It felt wrong at first, using her gift to harm instead of heal. But Alara was right. This was still life magic, just the other side of it. On the 3rd morning, they traveled to the neutral grounds again. This time, at least 1,000 wolves had gathered to watch, representatives from every pack in the region. The other alphas sat in positions of honor, including Vera, who nodded at Seraphine as she entered the circle. Gareth stood in the center, already shifted halfway to his wolf form. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall, covered in muscle, his claws like daggers. Seraphine stood opposite him in her human form, wearing simple clothes and no armor. She looked tiny by comparison. Last chance to forfeit, Gareth said. I'll make it quick. I'm not forfeiting. Then you're a fool. He smiled, showing too many teeth. I'm going to enjoy this. Elder Theron stepped forward. This is a sanctioned challenge under pack law. Combat ends when one fighter yields, dies, or is unable to continue. Are both parties ready? Ready, Gareth growled. Seraphine took a deep breath and reached for the seed. It responded immediately, flooding her with green light. Ready! Begin! Gareth charged. He was fast, faster than anything that big should be. He closed the distance in seconds, claws extended, going for her throat. Seraphine didn't move. At the last possible second, she thrust her hand forward, and the ground beneath Gareth exploded upward. A wall of earth and stone erupted between them, and Gareth slammed into it with bone-jarring force. The crowd gasped. Gareth staggered back, shaking his head. Then he laughed. Cute trick, but it won't save you. He leaped over the wall, coming down at her from above. Seraphine rolled aside, and his claws gouged deep trenches in the ground where she'd been standing. She scrambled to her feet and sent vines shooting toward him. They wrapped around his legs, his arms, his torso. He snarled and ripped them apart like tissue paper. Is that all you've got? Seraphine didn't answer. She was learning his patterns, his speed, his reach. Every attack taught her something new. Gareth came at her again, a flurry of claws and teeth that should have shredded her. But she was faster than he expected, ducking and weaving, using her smaller size to her advantage. When he overextended on a strike, she touched his arm. Life magic poured into him, but not healing. The opposite. She accelerated the decay of his cells, aging his flesh, making it weak and brittle. Gareth howled in pain and jerked back. His left arm hung useless, the muscle wasted and gray. You... He stared at his ruined arm in disbelief. What did you do? Showed you that strength isn't everything. Rage twisted his features. I'll kill you! He attacked with his remaining arm, wild and reckless now. Seraphine dodged, but his claws caught her shoulder, tearing through flesh. Blood splashed across the ground. Pain exploded through her. She stumbled, and Gareth pressed the advantage, backing her toward the edge of the circle. Yield! He roared. No! She planted her feet and released every ounce of power she'd been holding back. The seed's magic erupted from her like a tidal wave. The ground shook, trees bent toward the circle. Every plant within 100 feet began to grow wildly, vines and roots and branches, all reaching for Gareth. They wrapped around him, pulled him down, held him immobile. He struggled, but there were too many. For every vine he tore free, 5 more took its place. Seraphine walked toward him, blood still dripping from her shoulder, her eyes blazing green. Yield, she said quietly. Gareth snarled, still fighting. Never! Then I'll make you. She touched his chest, and this time she didn't hold back. She poured decay into him, aging his body years and seconds. His fur turned gray, his muscles withered, his bones became brittle. He screamed. Yield! Seraphine's voice echoed across the clearing. Or I'll turn you into dust. For a long moment, Gareth just stared at her. Then, finally, he said the word she'd been waiting for. I yield. The vines released him. He collapsed to the ground, gasping, his body slowly returning to normal as Seraphine withdrew her magic. The clearing erupted in noise, cheers, howls, shocked murmurs. Elder Theron stepped forward. The challenge is won. Seraphine Silvershade's right to her position is confirmed. The ruling stands. Seraphine swayed on her feet, exhaustion crashing over her. She'd used too much again. The burn in her veins told her she was seconds from collapse. But she'd won. Kale was there suddenly, catching her as her legs gave out. I've got you. Did I do it? She mumbled against his shoulder. You did it. His voice was thick with emotion. You were amazing. The other alphas approached. Vera clapped her on the shoulder, gently, since Seraphine was already injured. The Blood Moon Alpha nodded respect. Even Alpha Marcus of Stone Ridge looked impressed. Well fought, he said. Gareth was being helped to his feet by his enforcers. He looked decades older than he had at the start of the fight, his eyes hollow and defeated. When he looked at Seraphine, she saw something she'd never seen in him before. Fear. This isn't over, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, Seraphine said. It is. He left without another word, his enforcers supporting him. As the crowd began to disperse, Alara approached with tears in her eyes. Your mother would be so proud, she said, pulling Seraphine into a careful embrace. We all are. The journey back to Silvershade was triumphant. Wolves lined the path, howling their approval, calling her name. By the time they reached the village, Seraphine could barely keep her eyes open. The healers rushed to tend her wounds, but she waved them off. Later. Right now, I just need sleep. Kale carried her to her room and laid her gently on the bed. He started to leave, but she caught his hand. Stay, she said. Are you sure? I'm sure. He settled beside her, and she curled against his warmth. The bond hummed contentedly between them. Kael? Yeah? Thank you. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Always. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Rest now. You've earned it. As she drifted off to sleep, Seraphine heard celebrations starting outside. Music and laughter and joy. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. like she was home. Seraphine woke to the sound of hammering. She sat up carefully, testing her shoulder. The wound from Gareth's claws had healed overnight, not completely, but enough that she could move without wincing. The seed's power worked even while she slept now, knitting flesh and bone automatically. Through the window, she could see wolves building new structures, expanding the village. Children ran through the streets. Somewhere, someone was singing. It looked like hope. Kael was gone from the bed, but she could hear his voice outside, giving directions to a group of workers. She smiled despite herself. A knock at the door. Lissa entered carrying fresh clothes and a knowing grin. "Morning, hero. The whole pack wants to see you." "I'm not a hero. Tell that to them." Lissa gestured out the window. "You beat Gareth in single combat, secured our territories, proved that Silvershade isn't just alive, we're strong. People are calling it a miracle." "It was just survival." "Same thing sometimes." Lissa helped her dress, careful of her healing shoulder. "Alara wants to see you when you're ready. Says it's important." Seraphine found her aunt in the Great Hall, a new building they'd constructed at the base of the massive tree. Inside, Alara sat at a long table covered in maps and documents, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Sit," Alara said without looking up. "We have work to do." "Good morning to you too." "Morning was 3 hours ago. You slept late." Alara finally looked up, and her expression softened. "How's the shoulder?" "Healing. What's all this?" "Requests, petitions, trade agreements." Alara gestured at the scattered papers. "Turns out when you publicly defeat one of the strongest alphas in the region, everyone wants to be your friend. Or they're afraid of us." Fear and respect look the same from a distance. Alara pulled out a specific document. "This one is interesting. It's from Silverpine." Seraphine's stomach tightened. "What does Gareth want now?" "It's not from Gareth. It's from his council. Apparently after the challenge, there was a vote. They stripped him of his alpha status." The words didn't make sense at first. "They what?" "Removed him, citing failure of leadership, reckless decision-making, and bringing shame to the pack. They've installed Marcus as interim alpha until a proper successor can be chosen." Alara's smile was sharp. "They're asking if Silvershade would be open to a peace treaty. After everything Gareth did to us?" "Gareth isn't Silverpine. The pack is bigger than one man." Alara leaned back in her chair. "I'm inclined to accept, not out of forgiveness, but pragmatism. A peace treaty stabilizes the region, prevents more bloodshed, lets us focus on rebuilding instead of defending." "What about justice? For the attack 20 years ago? For all the people who died? Justice isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's making sure the same thing doesn't happen again." Alara studied her. "But this is your decision as much as mine. You're the heir. You have a voice in this." Seraphine thought about Gareth's face when she'd beaten him, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd looked broken and old. "I want one condition," she said. "Name it." "Gareth has to publicly acknowledge what he did. The attack, the lies, all of it. I want it recorded. I want every pack to know the truth. So it can't happen again." Alara's smile widened. "Done. I'll draft the treaty." Over the next week, everything changed. The peace treaty was signed. Gareth, now stripped of power and living in exile within his former territory, gave a public confession. Elder Theron recorded it personally, and copies were distributed to every pack in the region. The confession was brutal. Gareth admitted to fabricating evidence against Silvershade, to ordering the attack that killed hundreds, to stealing their lands and claiming them as his own. His voice was flat, defeated, and when it was over, he looked like a ghost of the man he'd been. "How does it feel?" Kael asked Seraphine after they listened to the recording together. "Empty," she admitted. "I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired. That's because revenge isn't as sweet as people think." Kael took her hand. "But justice? That's different. What you did wasn't about hurting him. It was about protecting your pack, making sure he couldn't hurt anyone else. Is there a difference?" "I think so. Revenge is about the past. Justice is about the future." Seraphine leaned her head on his shoulder. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher." The next challenge came from an unexpected direction. 3 weeks after the trial, a delegation arrived from the Silvershade survivors, who hadn't yet returned to the pack. They were wolves who'd been scattered across the continent, living in hiding, afraid to come forward. Their leader was an older woman named Maris, with scars covering half her face and eyes that had seen too much. "We heard about the council's decision," Maris said when Alara and Seraphine met with her. "We heard about the challenge, about the confession, and we want to come home." "You're welcome here," Alara said immediately. "But we have questions first." Maris looked at Seraphine. "You carry the heart tree's seed, our most sacred artifact, the thing our ancestors died protecting. What gives you the right?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. "Nothing gives me the right," Seraphine said quietly. "My mother planted it in me before I was born. I didn't choose this, I didn't ask for it, but I have it, and I'm trying to use it to help our pack survive. That's not enough. The seed belongs to all of Silvershade, not one person." Maris's scarred face was hard. "We've lost too much already. We won't lose our heritage to someone who sees it as personal power." "I don't think—" "Don't you? You used it to fight Gareth, to intimidate enemies, to prove your strength." Maris leaned forward. "That's not what the heart tree's power was meant for. It was meant for healing, for growth, for nurturing the land and the pack." Alara started to respond, but Seraphine stopped her. "You're right," Seraphine said. Maris blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. "I have been using the seed's power to fight, to defend, to prove myself." Seraphine stood. "Because that's what I've had to do to survive. But you're right that it's not what the power is meant for. So tell me, what should I be doing instead?" Maris studied her for a long moment. Then she said, "Follow me." She led them deep into the forest to a clearing Seraphine had never seen before. At its center was a crater, a massive scar in the earth where something had been torn away. "This is where the heart tree grew," Maris said quietly, "before Gareth's attack. It was 1,000 years old. Its roots spread for miles, its branches touched the sky. And when his wolves burned it, the entire forest screamed." Seraphine could feel it, the wrongness in the earth here, the absence, like a wound that had never healed. "Can you fix it?" Maris asked. "I don't know." "Then find out. Because until the heart tree grows again, Silvershade is still broken. We're still just survivors hiding in the woods." Maris's eyes were intense. "You want to prove you're worthy of that power? Prove you can do what our ancestors did, grow life from death, create something that will last longer than any of us." Seraphine knelt at the edge of the crater and pressed her hands to the scarred earth. The seed responded immediately, showing her the damage. The soil here was poisoned, not with chemicals, but with violence, with grief. 20 years of death and loss had soaked into the ground like blood. She'd have to heal all of it before anything could grow. "This will take time," she said. "We have time," Maris replied. For the next month, Seraphine worked. Every morning she came to the crater and poured healing into the earth. Slowly, painstakingly, she drew out the poison, replaced death with life, nurtured the soil until it could support growth again. It was different from fighting, different from proving herself. This was quiet work, patient work, the kind of healing that didn't show immediate results but built foundations that would last generations. Kael often joined her, sitting nearby while she worked, sometimes talking, sometimes just present. The bond between them had evolved into something comfortable, natural. They didn't need to define it anymore. One afternoon, as Seraphine was taking a break, Kael said, "I've been thinking. Dangerous habit. I want to stay, permanently, not just as your escort or because of the bond, but because this is where I belong now." Seraphine looked at him. "What about Silverpine? What about it? I'm not welcome there anymore. And honestly, I don't want to be. Everything I thought I wanted, the title, the power, my father's approval, it all feels hollow now." He smiled. "Here, I can actually be useful. Help build something instead of just maintaining what exists." "Alara would welcome you. The pack already accepts you." "I know, but I'm not asking them. I'm asking you." His eyes were steady. "Can I stay? Not as a refugee or an outsider, but as pack, as yours." The question was deeper than it sounded. This wasn't about territory or politics. This was about belonging, about choosing family instead of having it chosen for you. "Yes," Seraphine said. You can stay. His smile was like sunrise. 6 weeks after she started, the crater was ready. The entire pack gathered to watch as Seraphine stood at its center, hands pressed to the healed earth. She reached deep into the seed's power, deeper than she ever had before, and pulled. Green light erupted from her palms, pouring into the ground. The earth trembled, and then, slowly, something began to push up through the soil. A sapling. It grew as they watched, reaching toward the sky with impossible speed. Branches sprouted, leaves unfurled, roots spread beneath the surface, anchoring it to the earth. Within an hour, a tree stood where the crater had been. Not as large as the original heart tree, not yet, but alive, growing, real. The pack erupted in cheers. Seraphine collapsed, completely drained, and Kale caught her. But she was smiling, actually smiling. Did it work? She mumbled. See for yourself. She opened her eyes to see wolves kneeling around the new tree, touching its bark, tears streaming down their faces. Maris stood closest, her scarred face transformed by joy. You did it, she said to Seraphine. You brought it back. We brought it back, Seraphine corrected. All of us. That night, the pack celebrated with a feast, music and dancing, and stories told around fires. Seraphine sat with Alara and Kael and Lisa and Torin, watching her people, her family, laugh and sing, and live without fear for the first time in 20 years. This is what we fought for, Alara said quietly. Not revenge, not power. This. Worth it? Seraphine asked. Every second. Later, when the celebration had quieted and most of the pack had gone to bed, Seraphine found herself alone with Kael by the new heart tree. I have something for you, he said. He pulled a small carved wooden box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple silver, inlaid with a small green stone that glowed faintly in the darkness. It's from the original heart tree, Kael explained. Torin found a piece of the old roots while we were clearing the crater. I had it made into this. He took the ring out carefully. I know we're not traditional. I know the bond between us is complicated. But I want you to know that I choose you, every day. Not because magic tells me to, but because you're the bravest, stubbornest, most incredible person I've ever met. Seraphine felt tears burning her eyes. Kael, you don't have to answer now. I just wanted you to know. He started to put the ring back, but Seraphine caught his hand. Yes. Yes? Yes, I choose you too. Yes, I want this. Yes to all of it. She smiled through her tears. You're an idiot if you think I'd say anything else. He laughed and slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the green stone pulsing in time with her heartbeat. They kissed under the heart tree, surrounded by the forest they'd saved, the pack they'd built, the future they'd earned. 3 months later, the formal ceremony took place. High Elder Karina herself presided, with representatives from every major pack in attendance. Seraphine wore her mother's crown, the delicate silver branches that Alara had kept safe for 20 years. Kael stood beside her in formal clothes, looking uncomfortable but happy. Do you accept the responsibility of heir to Silvershade? Karina asked. I do. Do you swear to use your power not for personal gain but for the good of all wolves? I swear. Do you promise to preserve the balance between growth and decay, creation and destruction, life and death? I promise. Karina placed her hands over Seraphine's and the heart tree seed simultaneously. Silver light and green light merged, creating something new, something that pulsed with ancient power and fresh possibility. Then I recognize you, Seraphine Silvershade, as heir and keeper of the heart tree's legacy. May your reign be long and your wisdom deep. The gathered wolves howled their approval. Afterward, during the feast, Vera pulled Seraphine aside. You've done well, the Ironwood Alpha said. Better than I expected, if I'm honest. Thanks? I think? Take it as a compliment. Most people your age would have let power corrupt them. You used it to build instead. Vera smiled. Your mother would be proud. So would the High Elder. She already told me that. I know, but it's worth hearing again. Vera glanced at Kael, who was laughing with Lisa and some of the younger wolves. He's good for you. How can you tell? Because he doesn't try to control you, doesn't try to make you smaller so he can feel bigger. He just supports you. Vera's expression turned wistful. That's rare. Hold on to it. As winter turned to spring, Silvershade flourished. The new heart tree grew stronger every day, its roots spreading through the territory, bringing life wherever they touched. Crops that had failed for years suddenly thrived. Game returned to the forest. Even the weather seemed gentler. More survivors came home. The pack swelled to over 600. They built new houses, new halls, new training grounds. Silvershade was no longer just a village. It was becoming a city. And at the center of it all, Seraphine worked. She healed the sick. She taught young healers. She mediated disputes. She met with other alphas and negotiated treaties. She planted gardens and grew forests and made sure that every wolf in her pack had food and shelter and safety. It was exhausting work. Some days she fell into bed so tired she couldn't speak, but it was also fulfilling in a way she'd never experienced before. She was making a difference, not through violence or dominance, but through care, through nurturing, through being exactly what Gareth had always said she couldn't be: strong. One evening, 6 months after the heart tree's rebirth, Kael found her sitting in her mother's old room, a small cabin that had been preserved at the edge of the village. "You okay?" he asked. "I found her journal," Seraphine said, holding up a worn leather book. "She wrote about me, about binding the seed, about all the sacrifices she made to keep me safe." "What did she say?" "That she hoped I'd grow up normal, that I'd find love and happiness and peace, that I'd never have to know about any of this." Seraphine's voice cracked. "She wanted me to be ordinary." Kael sat beside her and took her hand. "Would you choose that, if you could go back?" Seraphine thought about it, really thought about it. "No," she said finally, "because being ordinary meant being powerless, meant accepting how people treated me, meant living small and quiet and afraid." She looked at the journal. "My mother did what she thought was best, and I love her for it. But I'm glad I became something different." "What's that?" "Someone who fights back. Someone who protects the people who can't protect themselves. Someone who proves that kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing there is." Kael kissed her forehead. "Your mother would understand, and she'd be proud." "I hope so." That night, Seraphine dreamed. She stood in the forest, but it wasn't the present. It was the past. The original heart tree towered above her, so massive it blocked out the sky. And standing beneath it was her mother. Lyra looked exactly as Seraphine remembered. Kind eyes, gentle smile, hands that could heal anything. "Mom?" Seraphine's voice was small. "Hello, sweetheart." Lyra opened her arms and Seraphine ran into them, feeling like a child again. "I'm sorry," Seraphine sobbed. "I broke your gift. I used the seed for fighting. I couldn't stay hidden like you wanted." "Shh. You did exactly what you needed to do." Lyra pulled back to look at her. "I bound the seed to protect you because you were a child. But you're not a child anymore. You're a woman who's survived impossible things and come out stronger. I couldn't be more proud." "Really? Really? You took what I gave you and made it your own. You didn't let anyone, not Gareth, not fear, not even me, define who you could be." Lyra smiled. "That's not breaking my gift. That's honoring it. I miss you. I know. I miss you too. But I'm always with you. In the seed. In the tree. In every life you heal and every garden you grow." Lyra kissed her forehead. "Keep being brave, Seraphine. Keep being kind. And keep proving that the rejected can become queens." Seraphine woke with tears on her face and peace in her heart. Years passed. Silvershade grew from a city to a center of learning. Healers came from all over the continent to study with Seraphine, to learn how to balance life and death, growth and decay. The heart tree became a pilgrimage site, a symbol of survival and renewal. Elara eventually stepped down as Alpha, passing the title to Seraphine in a ceremony that drew thousands of witnesses. Seraphine wore her mother's crown and spoke her oaths with Kael at her side, not as her subordinate, but as her equal, her partner. They had children. 3 of them, each carrying a spark of the seed's power, each unique and stubborn and beautiful. They grew up running through forests that their mother had grown, playing under trees that had been dead and were now alive, learning that strength came in many forms. Gareth died in his exile, old and alone. Few mourned him. Fewer remembered him. His legacy wasn't power or territory. It was a cautionary tale about what happens when fear drives your choices. Seraphine visited his grave once, years later, with Kael. "Do you hate him?" Kael asked. "No, I pity him." Seraphine looked at the simple stone marker. He had everything: power, respect, a son who wanted to make him proud. And he threw it all away because he was too afraid to accept that someone different from him could be strong. Sounds familiar. It should. I was almost like him. Almost let fear and anger make my decisions. She smiled. But I had people who showed me a better way. He didn't. They left flowers on the grave anyway. Not for Gareth, but for the person he could have been. On Seraphine's 50th birthday, the Council of Alphas gathered at Silvershade to honor her. She'd spent 3 decades building peace, mediating conflicts, and proving that strength didn't have to mean violence. High Elder Karina, now impossibly ancient but still sharp as ever, presented her with a new title. Seraphine Silvershade, you are no longer just an alpha. You are recognized as guardian of the balance, keeper of life, healer of nations. Karina's silver eyes sparkled. The first in 500 years to hold such a position. Wear it well. After the ceremony, Seraphine stood with Kael beneath the heart tree, now massive, its branches spreading over half the city. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "If you hadn't rejected me? If I'd never found you in that ravine?" "Sometimes, but I don't regret the path we took. Every struggle, every fight, every moment of pain, it led us here." Kael took her hand, his fingers finding the ring he'd given her decades ago. "We earned this. The hard way. The only way that matters." They stood together as the sun set, watching their grandchildren play in the garden Seraphine had grown, listening to the laughter of a pack that had been broken and was now whole. The girl who'd been rejected had become a queen, but more than that, she'd become herself. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. Sometimes strength looks like standing up when the world tells you to kneel. Sometimes it looks like choosing mercy when revenge would be easier. Sometimes it looks like a quiet healer who refuses to be small, who takes her gifts, the ones others called weakness, and uses them to change everything. Seraphine learned that the hard way. Through rejection and pain and battles she never should have won. Through discovering that the power she'd been born with wasn't just for healing bodies, but for healing broken systems, broken packs, broken hearts. She learned that being underestimated was an advantage, that kindness backed by strength was unstoppable, that the people who called her weak were the ones most afraid of what she could become, and she became it anyway. Not because she was perfect, not because she never doubted or feared or failed, but because she chose every single day to keep trying, to keep growing, to keep proving that the world's definition of strength was too narrow, too brutal, too small. The rejected girl became a queen, but first she became herself. And that made all the difference.